So he, in comparison to anyone else, has the right to define what it is to be a Christian. So whatever Paul is to be what it is to be a Christian, along with all the other apostles, including Peter and James and John and Matthias. Now, you'll have to forgive me, bro, because we were having a kind of conversation that I really do want to return to. But I'm going to return to it using your point about Paul. Because here's another good reason why you can believe.
I don't know who Paul is.
Right, so the Apostle Paul was a first century, the very first missionary of the church. He went about teaching and preaching the gospel as explained by our uncle.
So oldest me wants to come back.
To
check my other camera. Someone out.
But he started off his journey as an enemy of the faith. And this is well attested. This is well attested through his own admission. Yeah? And it's also something that the church has remembered in its corporate memory as something that we boast about, that Paul started his spiritual journey hating the church and persecuting the church. And then something miraculous happened. He had a visionary experience.
Exactly. This goes back to what I said.
Yes.
He witnessed something.
Yes.
He wants this experience.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
He witnessed something which then made him change his name from Saul.
Academic screeching, what going? What's the colour you
That's
see?
why I don't think it's too much for me to ask that if I continue following this God, that I experience what these people I keep reading about keep experiencing.
Yeah. The scriptures in its use of miracles.
Do you want to tell William what it was? Because it's actually a very powerful experience. What this
Well,
guy.
I think I heard like where it had
He had a visionary experience on the road to Damascus in which he saw and heard Christ, and this blinded him, and then 3 days later, his blindness was healed by a Christian who was told to go to a specific address to go and speak to him, right? Even though the person that was sent to him knew that he was a persecutor.
I think he had a donkey with him and the donkey wouldn't move or go any further.
No, that's a different person.
That's a different person.
Could there not be any other explanations for it though? Because I could think of a few.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, the guy.
New phone.
Was he a murderer?
Yeah.
Okay, Saul applauded the murderer.
To all the donators, respect.
Did he kill him?
Did he murder him himself? No, I don't think he murdered anyone specifically himself.
Because people going blind or thinking they go blind can be a cause of extreme stress. It can be a part of PTSD.
Yeah.
I think it has happened. You can
But
also
he's
have psychosomatic symptoms.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Except that this is you would have to demonstrate evidence of some extreme stress that Paul was in.
Sure. And I don't know anything about it. It just is it's a potential.
But here's a curiosity
Man
that
like Roger, what going?
I have is that those that have been raised
Saw her in the building.
psychosis
Respect,
that
huh?
is governed by the state. Well, I mean, I'm only going off what you're saying. You described yourself in a way that is
You got Raj.
and I find
Roger
it
Wasteman,
interesting
you must stop
that
listening.
those that don't wish to believe seek every reason to find an explanation not to believe.
Did I say that where you're at?
Certainly, in some cases, there are people that want to believe things, and they will believe them no matter what the evidence is. But that to me characterises atheists perfectly, and it characterises a whole bunch of agnostics as well. Right. So my point to you is, bro, that in all of our arguments, in all of the discussion that we've had, yeah. At each point where some kind of real engagement with the evidence is required, you've gone, well, there could be some other explanation.
But it is the
Rather
only
than
rational,
engaging
but
with
that's
the
not-
evidence that's brought forward.
I know what you're saying, but it is the rational way of living. To look for multiple
We upgraded Raj
phenomena.
into the donations.
It's the only rational way of thinking.
I'm curious. So if you were, let's say,
Different phone, yeah,
one
man,
of the
contract.
Israelites, and you witnessed Moses call out to his God, and the Red Sea split, would you accept that as something being supernatural, or would you think that there was a logical reason?
It's a good question. I'm not an expert in anything in science, but if I saw something like that happen, I think that's pretty difficult to explain. Miraculous. Like I think you could probably think of something, but it would be so ridiculous.
But brother,
Like an earthquake, right?
so this comes back to the structure in the universe that we see. There is clear structure and organisation in the universe, so much so that we can describe its laws mathematically. And those descriptions, indicate a mind.
I don't think you can say that.
Well, absolutely, I think you can. I think that we are inculcated in an agnostic society to say everything but that. But if you come across something that's designed, you understand that there's a designer and a mind behind it. We see structure in the universe, that implies design, which implies a mind behind it.
No, it implies rules. Like the universe corresponds to rules. Rules of physics.
Have you ever come across a rule without a rule maker?
But this is only from a human
Who
perspective.
created the mind rule maker?
What other perspective do we have?
Well, that is our limitation.
Yeah, but what you're basically arguing is on some mythical, non-existent perspective.
I could just say the same thing.
No. I am arguing from human perspective. I am saying that there's no rule without a rule maker, and that there's no design without a mind. That is human perspective. And in both, can you give me an example of a rule that doesn't have a rule maker?
Can you tell me about it?
It's not the level that I'm operating on.
Okay. Can you give me an example of a design that doesn't have a designer?
Again,
Yes, God.
we're looking at the universe, right? And it's the most complicated thing we can see. And it seems to have things that are inexplainable. There's many things we can't explain. Human consciousness, the moving in and out of particles from apparently a vacuum, the bending of space-time, there's some mathematical explanation for that, but many things we can't explain. So my position is that I don't know, and it looks very, very strange. So there might be other things that we can't detect, but that doesn't mean to me that it had a guy who designed it and tells you what to do. It seems like a jump.
No, of course. There's other parts to this picture. Absolutely. But what I'm saying to you is that wherever you can get from our conversation, the one thing that you can't conclude is atheism. And the other thing that you can't conclude is whilst you can be agnostic about the nature of the mind, and while you can be agnostic about the will of the mind, you can't be agnostic about the idea of the mind.
Why would the creator need a will?
Well, so
Why not just create?
because will to create is an act of will.
Did he have a choice?
That's a question I can't answer.
Right, well,
But-
it comes down to that. I know
no.
there's many things I won't be able to answer.
But these things, that's some empty speculation for me. The reality is that when you look at the structure in the universe, the rules of the universe, one thing you can't come to the conclusion of is that we don't have sufficient evidence to conclude that there's a mind behind
Can I
it.
ask you something?
Disagree. I don't think there's evidence of a mind.
So give me an example of a design without a mind.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Let's say the one thing you've got is if there is nothing in existence without a mind, what does God exist? There's no who created God.
It's a perfectly good question. Allow me to address it. The assumption of the question is that God came into existence. And if God sat within a chain of cause and effect, the question would be valid. Except that God does not sit in a chain of cause and effect. He is the first cause, the first mover of all things that move, the first cause of all things that exist. He is the grounding of all being. He exists outside of time and space, and therefore is not subject to the assumptions of the question.
The assumptions, there are a whole series of assumptions there.
Yes, absolutely.
He is, he was,
Yes.
he is, he
Yes.
will be. Now, you told us about assumptions. Now, God knows there are whole assumptions there.
Well, let's deal with that. Would you agree that with something that is outside of time and space?
I have no more an idea than you.
Okay. Well, what I can conclude is this: that space and time, to our current understanding, is basically everything that is space, time, energy, and matter, to give four general terms. And that the cosmology, as we understand it, as we observe it, as we engage with it, had a particular beginning at a particular point in time. We actually estimate the time at which the universe began.
Big Bang and all that.
Yeah, the expansion theory.
Yeah.
The expansion theory. Right.
Yeah, we got 24/7 love.
It is clear to me that something doesn't create itself. That you can't get nothing from nothing. Sorry, you can't get something from nothing.
I'm not clever enough like Big Bang to know what the answer is.
Right. So you can't get something from nothing, and that which is outside, that which causes something else to be, can't be the thing itself. Which means that the thing that causes all other things to be has to be distinct and different from the thing that it causes. thus, for example, the thing that causes time cannot be time itself, it has to be timeless. It can't be material, and if something that we say isn't material in our common parlance we call spiritual. It can't be something that has a limited amount of energy, as we find in the universe, because it has the energy to create that energy. So, to all common understanding, this thing we would have to describe as all-powerful, and it is something that is outside of space. And if it is outside of space, it's not subject to the rules of space. It doesn't exist in three-dimensional
These are
space.
objections to the existence of God as much as they are to Big Bang.
They all point towards a spiritual, all-powerful, non-material, non-spatial, non-temporal beginning.
You're making exactly the same objections to that as they are to Big Bang. These are exactly the same problems.
Except that no.
Yes.
The Big Bang, I'm sorry. The Big Bang is a theory that explains the observable evidence that the galaxies of the universe are all moving away from one another at incredible speed, which incidentally is getting faster.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah? That's what the Big Bang theory is. It's commonly called the Big Bang, but scientists don't call it the Big Bang, they call it the expansion.
Right. But that's what we've got.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, you come to that point where we assume that it is expanding from one point.
Yes.
And, well, we don't, the question to say is what was outside that point at that time? Well, who knows? Maybe the universe has always existed. Maybe it expands and contracts.
But we
and
are
expands
allowed
and
to
contracts.
make logical deductions, are we not?
Well, to
Some
say
would argue that that's an illogical deduction.
right.
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is. I don't want to insult you. I'm saying
I'm not.
believing that something is outside space and time, that would be deduced as an illogical conclusion to think that there's something outside of space and time creating space and time. You'd be like, where's the evidence for that? Because you provided us with evidence in regards to the resurrection of the crucifixion.
Which
of
incidentally
Christ.
I want to come back to because you guys never addressed the evidence. So
We did. I agree. We did. I said that.
you say, well, he didn't.
Well, okay, what's
So,
the point?
so that because we got off the point, let's go back to the point. The fact is that hundreds of years before crucifixion was ever invented, and hundreds of years before Christ's crucifixion, we have a testimony of crucifixion in Psalm 22 that the Gospels point us back to. Christ points us back to it. The Gospels point us back to it. And they describe a crucifixion in detail to the point of describing carving his garments and pulling lots over his robe. How do you deal with this foreknowledge?
Well, it's a prophecy, and it's as it's was described, then it seems to have came to pass. But people can make prophecies and they can come to pass by accident.
Okay, so now if I show you another prophecy and another prophecy and another prophecy and another prophecy, and all of these prophecies are fulfilled, at what point do you drop the nature of incredulous disbelief and go, there's something here that convicts me that I have to believe the overwhelming evidence that all these prophecies are being fulfilled in Christ?
Okay, now that's a good question, for sure. Because if it happens continuously, you see all these things, it wouldn't be so honest for me to just keep denying it, right? No, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
But I'd need to study them myself and hope that they were recorded as they say. Because when we've got history changes, history is misreported.
Yeah.
You know that, right? So,
Yeah.
and people are going to write down what they want.
Go on.
That's what I mean. So it applies to all types of history. It's going to have a lot of faults in it,
Yep.
and then we just have to take that as it is.
So
It's not if this guy said this and he saw that. It's word of mouth through how many thousands of years?
yes. So my point to you is that you really should look into the Old Testament prophecies that point towards Christ. Go and do your own research, and for you as well.
Yeah,
Need a miracle. And if after studying these miracles that point towards Christ's life, that capture the incidents of his life, you conclude that there are too many of them over too much an expanse of history, that we now find all in this one book, for us to conclude that this all happened by chance, that there must be a higher power, a divine hand behind it. I want you to come back and I'll take your acceptance of Christ as your Lord and Saviour.
Well,
Yeah.
you understand that I'm not here. I'm not on that
I
chat.
know.
I'm not on that chat by the way that I speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm open to reading about it for sure.
Well, let me give you another one.
I'm not
Let me give you another prophecy.
standard.
So we gave you Psalm 22. I'm going to give you another one. So this was written by a different man at a different time. Okay? But again, it describes what happened in Christ's life. So I'll give it to you. Again, it's a long passage, so I apologise. There are no short passages when it comes to Old Testament. Well, there are, but not many. So who has believed our message? This is in Isaiah 53. Who has believed our message? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he, talking about a person, grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, no appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And like one from whom men hide their face, he was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our
I
iniquities.
said R.I.P. the shit stream.
The chastening for our well-being fell upon
You got King
him.
Facts.
And by his scourging, just so
You
you
got
know,
Middlesex
Christ
Homer.
was scourged.
Come on, we have to upgrade, fam.
Whipping. Yeah? Yeah.
Have to tap into the belly fund and upgrade again.
We are healed. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us have
I bet
turned
you stop
to his
dissing my
own
brother.
way. But the Lord has called this the iniquity of us
SS140,
all
peace.
to fall on him. He was oppressed and he was afflicted. Go and study the life of Christ. Go and see how many times
Shut up,
he was
yo.
oppressed.
I just want to
and
watch.
afflicted.
Not hear you
Yet
jarring
he
voice.
did not open his mouth
Arenas.
like a lamb that is led to the
Arenas, shut
slaughter,
your
and
mouth,
like a
pussy.
sheep that is silent before its
Don't live in
shearers.
Konani.
At Christ's trial, when he was standing before Pilate, he refused to answer any questions.
Inspired champion, Leon become Christian.
So he did
Hallelujah.
not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. You know, the false accusations, he was taken away. And as for his generation who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, for the transgression of my people to whom the stroke was due, his grave
Sophia
was
Phil,
assigned with wicked men. Yet he was with a rich man in his death. When Christ died, he was meant to be crucified and then chucked into the common graveyard of the common sinner. When Christ was crucified, a disciple of his, a rich man called, is it Joseph? I get it right? Joseph was out in Arimathea. Went to Pilate, begged for the body, and then put him in his own tomb. So, yet he was with a rich man in his death, because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth.
Said he had no problem
But the Lord was
with
pleased to
incest.
crush him, putting him to grief. If he would render himself as a
Skydive Phil,
guilt
that was a see it on my next video.
he will
For
see
seeing today, I
his
asked him about
offering.
that still.
He will prolong his days, and the good pleasure of the Lord will prosper in his hand as a result of the anguish of his soul. He will see it and be satisfied by his knowledge, the righteous one. My servant will justify the many, as he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will allot him a portion with the great, and he will divide the booty with the strong, because he poured out himself to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Christ was crucified with two sinners, one on his left, one on his right. He was numbered with the transgressors, yet he himself bore the sin of many and interceded for the transgressors. So this describes Christ's scourging, it describes his death, it describes the fact of his conduct at his trial, It describes the fact that he was considered stricken, that he was considered forsaken by God, which is true, because Jews. Well, it does within a Jewish paradigm.
Respect
Because if you're
24/7.
hung on a tree, Jews
Man,
believe
to
you're
upgrade
cursed
stuff.
by God. That's what Jews believe. So when they saw Christ on a cross, lifted on a tree,
Assalamu
they
alaikum.
considered him cursed by God.
Amma.
Yeah? So he was considered stricken, he was numbered amongst the transgressors, so he
Let me
was
neck,
punished in a way that sinners were punished. He was punished in a way that criminals were punished. Okay, yeah?
Yeah, that's
But he didn't
so
do
cool
anything wrong,
Hee-hee.
which is also true.
Well, for the Romans, he probably did.
But he was accused of setting himself up against Caesar, but as the brother says, Christ said, my kingdom is not of this world.
Right, I know, but it was a historical event. Right?
Yeah,
So some people
exactly.
probably didn't like it.
So, of course, no, there were plenty of people that didn't
Well, I
like it,
understand what you mean.
but he didn't break any law.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So,
So here's
Brick road.
which law?
When you walk into the temple and you return there,
And like Titans. Oh, man.
when they're allowed to go in there and pray.
This is
Peace,
one
my
of the
brother.
reasons why I don't believe that
You can shut your mouth, please, so I can hear the debate. Idiot. Hey, Reynans,
because
shut your mouth
Christ
from and
himself
come to the
went
park and watch
into
it
the
yourself.
temple, created a weapon, flipped
You love
over
being
the
called a
tables
pussy,
and
innit?
drove out the
Very
people.
smart.
Now, he was not doing that because he was breaking any law. When you look at the people, when he did that, they could have arrested him there and
Hey,
then.
Sonny Dower in the
But
building.
they didn't.
I don't know, I just
Why?
rolled up
Because
still. I'm
they
gonna go
knew
look
he's
for him in a
not
minute.
broken
He said he's supposed to be here.
And there was no law he'd broken.
I got something to say.
I'm gonna go look in a minute still.
Interesting in that, but about something you said previously about coming back and accept my acceptance of Christianity or something like that. There's many more problems and issues with the whole concept. Like even if I was to read this, and be like, that's surprising. Then I'd have to be able to accept everything.
If I see him, I tell him that
Which
you're
I'm not sure
looking
that
for.
I don't know your stance on certain things, but about the age of the Earth, for example,
I believe it's millions of years old.
is that
Possibly
not,
billions.
Is that in accordance with this?
Yes.
Well, some people seem to disagree.
Those people would be ignorant of both science and scripture.
Right, well, and
I'll
that's
be black
another
gloves
thing,
and woolly
is
hat.
Islam, and then I see the
Wait,
major
man.
splits, and I see all the sects. Like, it seems just a human thing. When I see
Big up,
Christianity,
Seb.
I see all the different ways of looking at
Murray's.
it. It's just a human
Peace.
Well,
thing.
except that within the Christian worldview,
Big
we're
up, good
not
fellas.
utopians.
476.
We don't believe as Christians that we're pushing towards some
Big up Betty's
utopia.
closet.
Just bring the spread
People gonna call me a trade for bigging you up.
Is that not the same thing?
Well, can I finish the point that I made?
Sure.
So we're not utopians. We don't believe as Christians that if everyone became a Christian, the world would suddenly become perfect. Okay. That's the Islamist.
Yeah, we want
rhetoric.
peace in the world,
They
that's
think
true,
if
baby.
you follow Sharia law, the world will just be fine and dandy. And it's utter rubbish.
There's
It's
Rap
utter
Boy.
rubbish because they couldn't
See him
make
earlier still.
the Sharia law work.
There's the
The
Cody merch
caliphate
coming.
that Muhammad set
I'm on
up
a
has
joke team with
gone,
the Cody
it's
merch, you know.
collapsed. And so their system has already proven historically
I'm on a
to
long
be
team
flawed
still.
because they can't make it work. So now they're having to reinvent the idea of what Sharia law is to try and justify the historical collapse of the caliphate set by Muhammad. By contrast, we Christians believe,
Where's King Jedi?
as St. Augustine argues
know.
in the City of God, in the two kingdoms, in the two worlds,
We'll
the
walk around
City
in a
of
minute,
God
bro.
and the City of Rome, the City of the world. And this idea that human
judge my success by my
nature is
haters.
sinful and broken.
That's one thing that I take issue with.
Can I
close
finish?
it.
The human nature is sinful and broken. And so
Extremely
as
balanced.
Christians, within our worldview, we fully expect to see
I like that. Say that, say that. I'm a shot
playing
man. Man like
itself
Jedi
out
online, he's in the
our
chat, so.
world,
Big up Jedi.
including within the church. So when we see these divisions amongst the body of Christ, as partly created, when me and my brother were debating, we see these divisions and we mourn them. We mourn them as an expression of sin. But what we don't try to do is say that the Christianity and becoming a Christian means that you're going to solve every problem, because it won't. Sin is constantly working within human nature.
Okay, so when you say sin,
I have to go really soon.
all right, fair play. I think you make an issue with sin.
Raj, let's walk about. Hey, Raj, get your money
I
out.
can look at
Now walk around.
behaviors of man. I can look at what humans do, right? And I can trace it to evolutionary behaviors.
Yeah,
Oh, so I just read a book about it actually. It's
I would
called the
agree. They are
Science of Sin.
rooted in
Let me see the ones. Let me see the ones to walk around.
It's either bad or good.
Put in the ones if you want to see me walk around.
But we
Two
have
if you want to see me
freedom
stay here.
apparently free choice, so we can choose what way we act. In certain contexts, we consider murder to be okay. In certain contexts, we consider this and this to be okay. So, what I'm trying to say to you is that it's saying that this is sin, this is wrong, it's ordained by a higher being. We just look at our nature and look at what happens in the
One's all over the place. I got 1, 2.
and see how it
I'm saying that. I'm saying
I'm
that.
going to have to reply and then I'm going to have to go.
Alright?
So,
Yet we are
Now, let me
strong
check
in
this.
faith. Underestimate the power of a people strong in faith and unity at your peril. Alexander the Great slaughtered armies 10 times.
I'm gonna have to keep on coming back to the camera still, car. The way the sun is coming in and out, the brightness is getting fucked up.
Now the other could be gay, they could have
Like, these men are talking about Julian Assange.
be old, they could be unborn, they could be on death row, but they are the other. A zombie can't relate to the other. And we live in a culture of zombies. In Ireland, I was in Ireland to see the Pope. I didn't meet many Irish people. They were either middle-class West Brits or they're aspirational Americans. Occasionally I met an Irish person, they're usually homeless, or they're trying to learn their language again that was criminalised by the Brits. And you like my father was Irish, he was really Irish. He left at 16, but he could speak his own language. Now what happens at Pentecost is not the bullshit that people across the alley from here will say. Speaking in tongues at Pentecost was speaking your own language.
Come on.
It wasn't
Respect,
speaking
baby.
the imperialist language. The imperialist language now is
That
English.
ones, I see the ones, I see the
I
ones.
could get a job if I didn't have it.
I ain't even walked around the corner yet still. Let me walk around the corner and see where I'm going. Yeah, man can talk now without feeling away. I'll go on, man. You good? You saying?
That's really good, like, to be honest. And the fact that he's got...
Man like Carl Farron. I'll go on. I'll go on, brother. I like you good, yeah? You saying?
Them man coming down. Gang coming down today.
Hopefully. Yeah. Man, just come. The rain and all of that. Man, like big guards. I'll go on. I say something for the camera, fam. Say something for the camera. I like big guards. What you on today?
I'm on a peace and humble thing today, yeah.
I man seem calm today, fam. Mad thing. What happened? What
I
happened?
just finished the night shift that day, yeah. I didn't have enough sleep, you get me?
Say stressed out.
Yeah. So today I'll be on a calm thing. I apologize for my language, yeah. It was filthy still.
Yeah.
So apart from that, I ain't
Fam, you sound like a
nothing else.
totally different person right now,
But
man.
this time I normally am, innit? I
Yeah.
just got riled up, innit? You see, emotionally that day I got riled up, innit?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be here today, innit? I'll speak to a few people, I'll be involved in a few discussions. You get me?
Hey, Rod put in a message. He says I'm not paying that bullshit jizya.
Yeah, tell him, no one's asking him to anyway, bro.
Yeah, hey, you're the content today, fam. Mad thing. Man, like big odds, you know. Say nothing, brother.
Switch it up, innit?
Alright, man. I'm gonna walk around still. I'm gonna try to catch me in some discussions later or something. Let's see what I'm going over here. I heard that still about 4 o'clock, innit? I'll go on. Safe. I know, brother. I respect you, brother. I'll go on, Ash. I know, fam. You good, yeah? Come on. Ash in the building. Yeah, gang's here, man.
Then I'll come back to you and be like, oh, you know what you were saying, let me just correct this.
even don't judge, but stand by what we do.
Man, like porn star. We got Raju. Hey, what is that Adnan in the building? Let me hear what these men are talking about. And like Jamie. I'll go on. You don't want the camera? Alright, cool. I'll go. Don't worry, I'll go. Don't worry. No. When I say moving, I'll move the rest. Don't worry, man. I'll go away, man. You're cool, man. Alright. Yeah, man, the Paro, you know. Hey, erase that brother from your memory. You didn't see him. You don't want to be seen still. Let me see what Adnan and Rashid's talking about. They ain't recording. Hey, like Adnan's in the building. Big up Adnan, you right? Cool. I'm live streaming right now still, just so you know. I'll go on. The Dawa family. I'll go on, brother. Where you been at?
What happened was...
Yeah. Good to see you. I know, fam. I'm good, man.
I'll do my best, man.
I'm cool, brother. I know, fam. You good, yeah? I know, brother. You saying that?
Push you.
Cool, fam. I'll go on.
That's it. What happened?
How are you, man? Not too bad. No, because I
Sorry, let me walk around. Cool, son. I'll go on, son. You good, yeah? Cool, brother. Yeah, that's the Dawa team right here. It's getting ready for the day, you get me? Let me see what else I'm going. The Christians now. Setting up and getting ready. What are you saying, actually? Just got here.
Yeah, man. Seeing the layout out here work. Looking kind of mad still.
After the rain just went away, you get me? We're good now. Hey, here we go. Let me take in some Uncle Jermaine, some better quality.
Oh, thank you, Lord.
Better not this me, man. I'll thump him up today, man.
Absolutely, positively love donkeys. Oh, for God, so love donkeys. Oh, folks, if you're against the donkeys, something's wrong with you. Because God created the donkeys. Oh, God loves them. And God loves us. For God so loved you, Abdul, that he gave his only son. That whosoever would love him.
Yo, bag of police on the ends, you know.
Let's love the donkeys together.
They must know something I'm going today, you know, fam. What's that riot van over there? Mad thing. Police are just lurking in the background, you know. Are we saying 20 knock? They're slapping them knocks, fam. If I have to knock man out, you get me? Man like Bilal.
No, you can't just be
I'll
Muslim.
go on,
There
bro.
ain't just Muslims that are under surveillance. So obviously your actions have brought the attention of the authorities.
Do you have a home telephone? Huh? Do you have a home telephone? You're under surveillance, GCHQ, everyone's under surveillance.
But why were you specifically under surveillance?
You have to ask the police that, I don't know.
Oh, why are you smiling about it? You think you're laughing, mate?
You tell me, I've been interviewed plenty of times. I've never been convicted of any terrorism charge.
So have you ever been arrested for terrorism charges?
No, not even arrested.
Can you prove it? Can you get me, I want to see proof, so I don't trust you. You're not as fast.
If I had restrictions
Man said anything in the building.
after convictions, I would not be coming here. I've not been arrested or charged with anything related to terrorism.
But you don't support Andem Chad.
He's my Muslim brother.
Oh my God. Mate, listen, you are a fucking disgrace, and the fact that you're even in this country makes me feel physically sick. Mate, you know what? Huh? Who is your brother? Saying he supports Anjam Chowdhury is his brother.
Within ISIS. So are you
So, why is Chowdhury your brother? Why is Chowdhury your brother? Because he's a Muslim.
Hold on. That's a fair point. It's based on him being his brother Muslim. Personal view. Do you condone the things that he says? About
Well, he supports ISIS, doesn't he? Do you support ISIS? Do you condemn ISIS?
I don't support any groups or organisations.
Condemn ISIS.
So you condemn it?
Why do I need to denounce something?
I condemn ISIS. I condemn them. Yeah, I don't have any problem condemning ISIS.
Condemn ISIS?
Yeah.
You won't.
He won't condemn them. It's a bit telling, isn't it?
Mate, I've watched the videos.
Yeah, because you're normal.
It's very clear to say.
He's a trained lawyer. That's not true. Well done, Flag.
We're a law to implement into this country.
Seems to know a lot about it, doesn't he?
He is, because he's fucking in his video.
Oh, is he?
Fit within the Western country. That's a lie. I know Muslims who can stand here today with me and say today, but they're Sharia. Does everyone believe that Sharia should come into the UK?
We're against ISIS or any
Yeah,
Legislation is only for Allah. That's what Allah said in the Quran.
Hold on, don't get what Allah said in the Quran. I'm asking you guys, forget Allah for a second, I'm asking you guys, would you support Sharia law being implemented in this country?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because
It's not the law of the land. In the Quran it states you must respect. In the Quran it must respect. Wait, so does it tell you to respect?
Allah says in the first verse of Surah Al-Azab, "O Prophet, fear Allah and do not obey the disbelievers and hypocrites."
So we just
Theresa May, a kafir or Muslim?
Let him say what he's going to say. Hold on.
So I don't obey her.
Theresa May is
What I'm
Catholic.
saying is,
Yes, I don't obey her.
What about British
Hold on.
democracy?
Who knows the
Theresa
Quran?
May's Catholic.
Who knows the Quran?
Oh, Catholic. Oh, I see.
Question about the Quran. Does in the Quran it say that you must abide by the rules of the land that you're in.
Where does it say that?
I'm asking you, I don't know, I've never read it.
He ain't going to tell you the truth. He's going to lie to you.
You're telling
I'm
me,
not lying.
you're telling me,
The Quran says,
you're telling
all
me
prophets-
you're telling me a gay man should be thrown off a building in this country, Sharia law is implemented. Answer the question.
You're laughing about
My
it.
son's
laughing
gay.
about it.
You throw my son off a building because he was gay. Is that what you're trying to say?
what?
Is that, I'm asking
Honestly.
you,
All right, let me finish something else.
Why
I'm a
can't you ask-
Jew. Do you think I should be stoned to death as well?
Where'd you get that from?
Okay,
Jews
hold
lived
on.
under Khilafah in
Okay,
Al-Andalus.
okay,
What are you
okay.
talking about?
Okay, I'm asking
Look
you a
up
question.
Jewish professor David Wasserstein. The Muslims.
Yeah, I am a Jew. I don't need to look
the
up anything.
Muslims-
The Muslims.
The Muslims in Al-Andalus saved the Jews from the Spanish Inquisition when the Christians tried to kill you.
To be sure,
You don't talk about that.
To be fair, I'm more interested in the fact. Would you invite a gay man into a mosque?
No, of course he would.
Why?
Why?
That's discrimination against gays.
Why wouldn't you? What have you got against a gay man?
Terrorist support. I don't have anything.
Because we've had a debate.
Oh, you don't?
Hold on. I want to fucking get this point right. We had a debate, me and him, with what's his name?
Sheikh Jafar Lada. Oh, the
No,
Shia.
Hold on. And he sat with us and he told us his community, the Muslim community, would have their own part of a gay community that are Muslim that would be invited. So why are you sort of feeling so strong about this?
Because I don't run a mosque, so how can I invite anyone to a mosque?
No, with you to go to your mosque.
They can if they want.
Okay, but so Sharia law says that you should throw gays off a building, and if they,
No, it says that it's illegal, isn't it?
okay, so what would you do with a gay man?
The punishment
you
is
had your
for the action. If there's sufficient evidence against him, he'll be put forth in front of a judge.
Right.
And if there's sufficient evidence, and all the conditions are met, there's around 80 shubhat conditions.
and if
if
it
they're
meets
met,
all of them-
the punishment is implemented.
What punishment's that then?
Hold on, let me finish. What's the punishment? What's the punishment?
Why are you
Because
asking?
we're at the speaker's corner, we talk here.
Why are you asking?
What's the punishment? Anyone can what's the punishment?
I bet he doesn't even speak Arabic.
Why would I speak Arabic? I'm born in Sicily. I've been here my whole life. Why would
Well,
I
it might actually. Yeah, he doesn't speak Arabic.
Are you talking
to Muslims, you can't speak Arabic.
Well, you know why? Well, yeah.
Muslims in Indonesia don't speak Arabic.
If they study it, they learn it. If they study the Quran, they learn Arabic.
Are you taught to respect Christians, respect Jews, respect Hindus? So respecting
Yiddish is not the language of that.
So why is it that the
Do you mean Hebrew?
communities that I'm looking at,
The Quran is written in Hebrew. It's not written in Yiddish.
they're telling people that people hit from Hindus, from Sikhs,
Hebrew is the
are
language that
less
the
than
Quran
you.
is written in.
believe
Not
less than
Yiddish. Actually, I can speak a little Yiddish. It can speak a tiny Yiddish.
Where did you read this?
That was quick.
I watched it, mate.
But-
Did I see
Where did
it?
you watch it?
Hebrew is the language.
We've
Hebrew
got
is the
evidence.
language of
Listen,
Quran.
listen,
I don't take none of this from YouTube.
Listen,
Where's he going?
He's been beaten off.
Let's follow it. Where's he going? He ain't getting away with that, is he? Oh, Chargers supporter. Come on. Oh, condemn ISIS. Or you support
he's not going to condemn it. There's no point in
He's got a smile on his face. He's laughing about supporting terrorism. I didn't say that.
You're older from me, I mean,
How much listening? Condemn ISIS then. Hang on. First of all, I don't need to denounce something I've never announced support for in the first place. Simple as.
Your friend Anjem Chowdhury supports ISIS.
I don't believe that's true.
So you and your community would happily implement Sharia law into this country and take away our democratic rights, yeah? Is that what you're saying?
You don't have democratic rights.
I fucking do, mate. Trust me, I do.
Do you think
I
your
do.
vote makes a difference?
No, I don't. No, it doesn't.
So you don't have
No,
democratic rights
hold
then?
on.
Democracy don't
To
work?
these parties at the moment, once we get our way with Tommy gets in, we'll do it properly. Yeah?
No, it won't. Do you
Yeah,
know
it will.
why?
Trust me, it will.
Because it's run by bankers. He's not a banker.
What's
So
wrong with
so
banker?
the whole country's run by bankers.
Political party that we're doing at the moment, mate.
Bankers.
Yeah, they are bankers.
That's
they are
another word
bankers.
for
They're
them.
right. We'll agree
Yeah.
with that.
Sharia corner today. Ain't gonna be Sharia corner for much
Listen,
longer.
at the end of the day, right? Listen, you Muslims aren't going anywhere. Us Christians ain't going nowhere. If you put your beliefs, you put your beliefs out there, why can't we all live in harmony? I tell you why, because the ideology tells us we can't live in harmony.
I can live in harmony. There's no problem with that.
Okay, so then condemn ISIS.
Why? If I do
Just
that, how's that
condemn-
going to bring harmony?
Condemn ISIS.
Together I can know that you're a man.
You're laughing about it. You're laughing about it.
I'm asking you to condemn the vicious, barbaric actions by a group in the Middle East. Raped young girls, abused women. I'm asking you just to say, you know what, I agree with you.
I don't watch the TV.
don't watch TV?
I don't watch TV.
So you tell me ISIS don't rape no one?
How would I know? I've never met them.
There you go. There's your answer.
Well, you can still condemn them. I say ISIS are abhorrent, and
basically wipes off the face of the earth.
There's no ISIS here.
Chowdhury.
Why are you saying that? Because he's wearing a kameez.
No,
Is that
because
it?
he's been in videos with Chowdhury.
I haven't seen no videos of him in Chowdhury.
Do not harm the women, do not use the animal. Right, wow. Yeah, so condemn them. As a Muslim,
Because I've never met them. I don't know what they've done, haven't done.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Come on, man. You know.
How do I know? I haven't been to Syria. I haven't been to Iraq.
Just what you're telling me, the Muslims don't report on what's going on in ISIS for ISIS. Forget the wet mainstream media.
The Kurds condemn ISIS. The Kurds kill ISIS.
And Hezbollah kill ISIS.
Hezbollah Shaitan, I don't care about
Hezbollah are terrorists.
Hezbollah Shaitan. Hezbollah Shaitan are the enemy of Islam and Muslims.
What is Shaitan? The devil?
That's weird because other people say
Because
something
Hezbollah means party of God. I say no, it's Hezbollah Shaitan, party of Satan.
Was Muhammad wrong for saying these things?
No.
Because ISIS are doing all
Just wait till
How am I meant to know?
wait behind
Did
him.
Muhammad kill 600 Jews in a day? Yes. What were ISIS doing? Although they've not probably have murdered Jews. ISIS were murdering people, so they followed Muhammad's example. They
had a
took sex
peace treaty.
trades.
They had a peace treaty. The Jews broke the peace treaty, right?
But that justifies beheading 600
The Romans
Jews.
did it. Are you going to
I
condemn
have
them?
non-Muslims who I know and I'm friendly towards. I'm just a Muslim. I buy them food, I spend time with them, but they're not my friends.
Why? Is your mum your friend?
I love and respect my mum, so I'm ordered to in Islam.
So you still close to your family members, like your mum or siblings, anything like that?
He needs to condemn ISIS.
He won't. He won't.
So the thing is, so Tang
Is there a Muslim here that will condemn ISIS?
Tang gets chased out of it, yet him that supports terrorism is allowed it.
Not a single hand raised. Not a single hand raised.
No one will condemn ISIS. No one. Not one person.
No, everyone here condemns ISIS. And I don't understand why.
I'm not in the
killed
game.
so many Muslims.
I'm not in the game of condemning and
Do you think
condoning
it's
because it
okay to
achieves
kill
nothing.
innocent Muslims?
No, you're not allowed.
I never said that.
Killing
Muslims is wrong.
So what ISIS are doing is wrong.
So
I know what they're doing.
ISIS have killed
No, I
Muslims.
don't. How am I meant to know?
Why is he left?
How am I meant to know?
All these Muslims get their
No, I've just said, how do I know what they're doing? I've never met them. I've never been to the lads they're
I've
in.
never met Hitler, but I know who he is.
Yes.
Because he murdered Jews.
No, Hitler was a Tahut. Hitler was a Tahut.
Hitler was actually allied
that in English, mate?
because the actual, what was it, the mayor of Jerusalem.
Tahut.
The mayor of Jerusalem called for Hitler to come and ethnically cleanse all the Jews out of Jerusalem, something that he probably supports.
Yeah, but do you know why?
Why?
Because what did
Jerusalem belongs to Israel and it'll always belong to Israel. Islam only went to Jerusalem for a violent conquest. Why should I be a terrorist supporter?
Oh, so go away then, don't talk
You
to me.
go away, it's a good mate, it's our problem.
I tried to walk off and you came following me.
See you later, I'll go and find your
I did
boyfriend,
walk
Anjam
off.
Chowdhury. Go find him.
There are parts of the Quran in the beginning that talk about false believers. And I find it very interesting.
The Jews,
Like you won't even condemn a group that have blatantly killed your brothers and sisters, innocent women and children, in a mosque. And you won't condemn it, and you won't condemn the actions.
Would you? Okay, here's a question. Would you join us?
How can I join a group that don't exist anymore?
You don't think ISIS exists anymore? No. Of course they do. They're underground, my friend. They're underground, my friend. There's a lot left. They're integrated back into the system.
Yeah, actually, how many of them got
When Allah calls for them, they will come. You know that.
Jewish before
You know that.
So why are you laughing about it?
If ISIS gave you an opportunity to join them, would you join them?
You are the problem. You are the reason why there's so much hatred against ordinary
You're the reason why we stand here today and we're fighting against. Yeah.
You know what? People
I've got
like
Muslim
you,
friends and
like
they're fucking lovely people. I've got Muslim friends, mate.
people
They're
like you,
lovely
when
people.
people see you
Lovely
around,
people.
will presume that you speak for Islam, and this is the problem. People like you get too much airtime. People like Anjam Chowdhury get too much airtime, and then that makes people like me get annoyed, and then you end up taking it out on innocent people. You are the problem in this country. You need to eradicate it in this country.
This is how they recruit.
Because what you've done is you've obviously a loner back in the day. You bullied at school and you thought,
It's
you know
Italian.
what,
You ain't even
I'm
allowed
going to
back
go
in
to
Italy, are you?
Islam.
Because you're on a watch list. So why did you say you weren't allowed back in Italy? Because you was on a watch list. Why did you say you weren't allowed back in Italy? Because you was on a watch list. Oh, so why was it last time it was I'm on a watch list, I'm not allowed, I'm not even allowed
I
back in
said
Italy?
because they took my passport.
Why'd you support killing people?
I don't.
It's wrong.
I don't.
You do that.
I just said I
You
don't.
do. So condemn ISIS.
Why do I need to?
Condemn ISIS. Every fucker here will condemn
Watch
ISIS
this.
because
Do you condemn Hitler?
Yes.
See how easy that was?
If someone
cooks a pizza and they burn it, and you condemn them for burning the pizza won't be unburned.
I will condemn him if I'm hungry. Damage is done. And there's a big difference. There's a big difference. There's a big difference between burning a pizza and killing innocent women and children.
Everyone shouts about Tommy Robinson this, Tommy Robinson that, but we need people like Tommy. It's people like you that are giving these good Muslims, the law-abiding Muslims in this country, the law-abiding Muslims in this country don't like Tommy. What? I don't like him. Because of what? Because he's a racist. He's not a racist. He's people like this, like you're for Islam, he's for us. I don't like Tommy. We don't need to like Tommy. Tommy don't like you. I won't vote for you. I'm not going to vote for you. We all will.
He actually has punched out women, so you have to give him.
He's not educated. He's condemned. He's a fraudster. He's a fraudster. Tommy's a fraudster. Why would you let him? Yeah, he should be banged up. He's not in power yet. He will never be in power.
Because he's not going to be a prime minister, mate, but he'll have influence, trust me. Very soon, mate. It's coming.
You need to find your man first. You need to find your man first.
Yeah, fan, I'm Tommy Robinson. He's not being supportive. Our man at the moment is Gerard Batten. Gerard Batten, okay, we'll make sure. Don't know, UKIP leader.
They look like us, they act like us, they are not. Danny, how would you like to be a spokesperson?
I think that was brief of having me last week, so
we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
That's it. And you're in. Why were you born Muslim?
No, he's a convert, and this is the problem. All the converts are the most extreme ones, and then they give you all a bad name.
Very good point.
Because maybe 80% of terrorists convert to Islam and
ISIS would take your mother. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I apologise. They would take your mum into a room and they would do horrible things to her, and you wouldn't condemn them.
how would you know that?
Because you're telling me if your mum, as a white woman, I imagine she's white, was it Italian white? Yeah, was in a country where ISIS operate at the moment, she would be taken, she would be raped, she would be literally hanged probably from somewhere. And you, what they do, mate. This is what they're about.
What did they do to the Yazidis?
They kill their own Muslims.
So you don't read the news. So you don't look at anything. So what do you do? What do you do? Just read the book and listen to Anjam Chowdhury when he's whispering in your ear, telling you what to do.
Raping and killing.
You don't have to watch TV. You can get news sources from the internet. Oh,
I don't use social media. I don't read newspapers. Nothing.
So how do you get your information? How do you form your opinions on what's going on in the world? Do you just listen to someone? You follow blindly someone. So you're a sheep.
So how do you know what's going on without research?
That's the thing I said. I don't know what's going on.
So you're
what do you advocate?
So you're ignorant and dumb because you believe someone like Anjam
Have you read the Quran? The whole thing, yeah?
Yes, several
You pride yourself on it, yeah? Good. So why can't you listen to people that stand there today telling you what you're doing and what your beliefs are, the way that you feel?
Well, haven't you said what my beliefs are?
I don't need to. I've watched the video. We know all about you.
What are my
We
beliefs?
know all about you. You're very much for ISIS. You want Sharia law in this country. How'd you get to that?
support Anjam Chowdhury.
We're not fucking stupid. We know exactly who you are. We don't just walk into a park, hit the guy with the towel and thought we'll have a chat with him. We know who you are. Okay, we know what you stand for. We do, mate.
What do I stand for? What do I stand for?
The murder of innocent people, rape of non-Muslims.
I
Because
I
if you
believe in
don't
the
condemn it
Sharia.
then.
There's a punishment for rape under the Sharia.
Okay, so let me
So
talk
how
this
can
way.
I- and I
My
support the
son,
establishment
my
of the
son
Sharia.
is gay. If my son came to you, okay, would you take him to a mosque? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't walk in a mosque.
Would he want to
with
go
my
to
son.
a mosque?
Potentially, why not? For
If he wants to come to the
educational
mosque to
purposes?
learn about Islam, then yeah, fine.
As a gay man, you would walk in there with a gay man.
He could come to the mosque and learn if he wants.
And
So
what would
that's
happen to
basically
him?
him saying he wouldn't go with it. Do you know what? You're smart as shit because you don't answer any questions and then you laugh about it. This is the problem with people like you, just like
It's all right
Chowdhury. You've
because there's
obviously had
enough
a lot of
Muslims
learning
around
from
here that one day going to give you a good kick in and make you understand they're not their part of their religion. They've got their own religion, and you just this mighty little man who's obviously bullied in school. Change your religion and try and get friends.
I done well at school. I done probably better in school than you.
Probably was,
do for a
mate.
job?
Probably was, mate.
Why does it?
So
How
you
I
don't
have my
work.
finances, my
So you take benefits from the kafar democracy and then you come and preach our destruction.
How would you come to
What
that
a
conclusion?
career!
How would you come to that
Hypocrite.
conclusion?
Do you work?
I'm done with this,
Doesn't
prick.
matter what.
Any Muslims want to have a chat with your man and get him to fucking sort his life out, that'd be great.
Are you in the receipt of state benefits?
I work. That's my concern.
So you work.
Come stand close.
You don't take any money from this democracy, this well, it's actually a constitutional monarchy. Why do you support terrorism?
I'm just talking about seeing how.
Why won't you condemn Chowdhury then, who supports terrorism?
Because I don't believe he does support terrorism. That's why.
You're not really deluded, are you?
No, I'll tell you why.
Go on, tell me why he doesn't support terrorism.
Okay, the man is a qualified lawyer.
Yeah.
He knows more about UK law, specifically terrorism law, more than you. All the police officers here, all of Scotland Yard SR15, he knows the counter-terrorism laws better than all of them. And the thing is, for so long, he had not even been arrested. Yeah? Why is that? Because he knows the law. He did not break the law. And even before he went to court and was taken to jail, he went on Sky News and he said, I can say wholeheartedly, I've not actually contradicted the laws of this
So he
country.
knows how to play. So he knows how to play the system, basically. That's it. At the end of the day, he supports terrorism.
He knows what the
He
laws are.
supports terrorism. And can't you see how many terror attacks this country that's happened in this country?
There was one recently done by some right-wing mob with a stolen
Right
car.
wing Mars, right outside Cricklewood at the Shiite.
Joe Cox.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Cox. Yeah.
Did you condemn that?
Yeah, of course I
Was
do.
that a terrorist act?
Was it a terrorist act? Was he trying to? Did he kill her to further his own political agenda? I don't know. Is it a
He
hate
stole-
crime?
he
Is
stole
that a
the
terrorist
car.
act or not?
He stole the car to
You
pre-plan
condone
it,
it.
and he done it with
I
a
don't support it. Anybody that takes someone's life shouldn't be.
Can you condemn it? Can you condemn it?
Huh?
Can you
He
condemn
was
it?
wrong. He shouldn't have done it. Don't
Is he a
kill-
terrorist?
Huh?
Is he a terrorist?
I don't think he was connected to any terrorist group.
Is he a is it
I
a
don't-
terrorist act?
Huh? No, I
Well,
wouldn't
I'm
say
not
it's a
connected
terrorist
to
act.
any
Come on,
terrorist.
man. Why is
It's
it
murder.
terrorism?
It's murder.
Of course a terrorist
Terrorism is
act.
killing someone to further your own political
Of
agenda.
course, that's what he was doing.
How was it?
He was supported by what's that right wing group? And they found a lot of videos of Tommy and
Tommy, I don't think so.
Of course they did. Of
How's-
course, he was in the news. You
Okay,
can't make
you're
this up as
saying
you're going
that.
along.
No. You're saying that and you're mentioning that terrorist attack.
All I said was is it a terrorist act? or
I
not?
wouldn't say
Was he a
personally it
terrorist
was
or
a
not?
terrorist attack. I said
Thank
it was
you, that's
murder. Okay?
He's a terrorist,
Right?
yeah.
Was Darren Osborne a terrorist attack?
I don't know who that is.
Darren Osborne, the guy that drove into Finsbury Moss. Well, tried to drive right. Okay. So why did he get 43 years? Then a Muslim that ran over. Where was it? He ran over. I think he killed 2 people. Sentenced for 6 years. Why is it that Muslims? I'm just saying the legal system. Indigenous people are getting much more severe sentences than Muslims. Ran in 2001, Ross Parker. Yeah, listen. Ross Parker in 2001 was murdered in Peterborough by 4 Pakistanis that were chatting for Bin Laden and the Taliban. They got 17 years each and they were allowed out on bail. Darren Osborne, as much of an idiot as he is, because I don't believe in violence,
He's a terrorist.
43 years. For what? For a guy that was already dying.
I mean, you compare one example to another.
No, you can't say that. You can't say
cannot.
somebody that's already died.
He was already having a heart attack.
How many Muslims
That's like, let's go to the hospital and kill everybody that's already
How
died.
many?
I don't know. Tell me.
Exactly, you don't know.
No, so I'm asking. Tell
Why
me.
is there a Kurdish Muslim brother in Wandsworth prison right now? He's on a 28-year sentence for a Facebook comment.
What was the Facebook?
I don't actually know, but my friend.
So he got
my
28
friend,
years just for one
my
Facebook
my friend came out of Wandsworth recently and told me.
What was he in Wandsworth for?
He was in Wandsworth for a fight that broke out. Basically.
So nothing to do with terrorism.
No.
Okay. So would you still? Right. We all need to agree, right?
I'm against terrorism.
So condemn ISIS.
But this is the problem because
Look, I'm a Muslim, I condemn ISIS. I condemn every single terrorist group. Muslim, no, Muslim. You don't bro, you listen, what you're doing here, you're using this video to support your agenda.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yet again,
No,
I'm
there's
surrounded.
police here.
Let me
Don't
tell
worry.
you
Don't
what,
worry.
let me tell you what,
No,
you
no.
have many coming up to supporters in your channel, right, in your following fan base, and they're going to see you and they're going to be like, bro, you're talking to this guy, he's not condemning ISIS. So, and because
People need to see.
But we
People
Ali
need
Dawah
to see.
condemned him.
Okay, yeah, and that's brilliant.
Mohammed Najab condemned
What I'm
him.
saying is,
Muslim Dawah condemned him.
people that don't come down here need to see that people like this are given free reign in this part, yet you get people like Tam that are chased out.
the thing is, you believe in freedom of speech.
We will condemn him.
Tan is a racist.
Why? What did he say? Because I've heard a few
Oh,
things
you
about
come on,
it.
he
No,
said
I've not
N-word.
seen the whole
He said
video.
N-word.
He called Jedi a monkey.
Excuse me. You just,
Yeah, there
you
we
just
go.
called me a terrorist.
Now you agree he's
support
racist, right?
terrorism.
Now you agree
No,
he's
you just called me a terrorist.
You support terrorism?
No, I don't. I just said I don't support terrorism.
But you won't condemn
called me
Chowdhury.
a terrorist.
You won't condemn
You called
Chowdhury.
me
And
a
you won't
terrorist.
condemn ISIS.
I condemn ISIS, bro. They kill my people in
So
Pakistan.
why won't you condemn ISIS?
You called me a terrorist, yeah? I would like you now to bring one example where I've engaged in an act of terrorism.
I don't know. Do
What
I?
is the definition of terrorism according to
Terrorism,
Oxford Dictionary?
using violence to further your own political agenda.
He hasn't done it, but he supports it. He
You
supports it.
support
When
it.
have I done that?
You support it.
When have I
You
supported
support
that?
it. You support Chowdhury.
When
You
did you
support
say that, bro?
ISIS.
But you would have condemned ISIS, innit? Why
You
should
like
condemn
pink? I'm gonna say you like pink all day. You
no,
like,
but
but you
ISIS,
never
they're
said you
proven
like
terrorists,
pink.
bro. They're proven
But you
terrorists.
never said you like
Well, that
pink.
doesn't matter. ISIS are proven terrorists. We should condemn them.
But did he say
Condemn them.
Condoning achieved nothing.
Who said this?
Bro, but it shows that you're against terrorism, though, innit?
I said I'm
Look,
against terrorism.
white terrorism.
I'm against unlawful killing.
So you're against ISIS, that means.
I'm against unlawful killing.
But
But
say you're
this is
against
the
ISIS,
problem.
bro. Say
This
it.
is the problem. You won't condemn.
Don't say to
ISIS.
please him, bro. Don't say to
I'm not
please him.
saying
Just say
to
it
please
for
him. I'm
yourself.
just saying for everybody here,
I don't
condemn
understand what you're
ISIS.
saying. Wallah, I don't
And
understand.
if he can say it, and all the rest of them can
Fuck
say
terrorist
it,
groups.
why
Muslim one
can't,
or
yeah,
Muslim?
all terrorist groups, the IRA, all of them.
Because I'm not in the scheme of condemning and condoning.
Well, can I just say, yeah, most Muslims, they condemn ISIS,
Yeah,
right?
we know
Don't
this.
use this
We
guy
know
there,
this.
said
I
that,
had a
you
debate
know?
with
Look,
another
Muslim like
imam,
him, we
a
all condemn
Shiite
ISIS, right?
imam, and he wouldn't. But the problem with the Shiite imam was he wouldn't condemn Hezbollah because he said Hezbollah aren't terrorists. The same thing.
They are.
What brought ISIS into the war in the Middle East?
Oh, Saudi, Bill Clinton, not Bill Clinton, Hillary and Obama, wasn't it? No. Are you going to say Israel? Go on. Go on.
It's not Obama.
Yeah, they invaded.
Nothing wrong with Israel, mate. What's wrong with
He's
Israel?
invading Iraq, not Israel.
Oh, what? So the Iraq war that was by Blair and Bush, yeah, which was absolutely ridiculous.
Really
Yeah, of
mad
course,
thing.
they should never have gone into Iraq.
friend,
The only
young
reason they
man.
went into Iraq
His
was
name
oil.
Philip.
Yeah.
It's meddling in the affairs of the Middle East countries.
Okay.
And the best example of this is Iraq and Libya.
Yeah, Libya. Yeah.
You
they
condemn,
should-
you condemn
yeah.
American and British intervention to Muslim
But you
countries.
should
I don't
condemn
believe
that,
America
because
and
that's
Britain
what brought.
should be interfering.
I am
with
Muslim.
But do you understand why terrorists
them?
Yeah, I do condemn
You
it.
know
I
why
don't
terrorists
believe in
come
our
from?
fault.
You know
Can
why
I
terrorists
finish my sentence?
Yeah, go on.
I'm Muslim,
Yeah.
and I condemn every crime and every terror of act, including those perpetrated by Muslim people.
Yeah, brilliant.
But and that is big, large but really.
Go on.
That was all brought on the forefront of the Middle East by meddling into the affairs and based on bag of lies, disgusting bag of lies
Listen, we were
by
against,
the British government
we were against
and
the
the
Iraq
American
war.
government. Yes, thank you so
And,
much.
and Libya
Thank
as
you.
well. Yeah, let him sneak
But
out.
you couldn't stop that. As a result of the invasion of Iraq, more than a
You know what?
million,
Fair play to you, not for saying
more
that,
than
because
a
I don't
million
know how hard it is
innocent
for him to
people
say it.
killed. Do you know that or not?
Well, yeah, look.
More than a million people,
Yeah. We're
gonna go in
children
2
and
minutes.
women,
Yeah, and look, look.
and whole families.
Yeah, and I don't-
and ISIS came,
Let me say
and of
something.
course,
Look,
what you get, Saddam Hussein was very bad, but at least
It was one
he
man-
was,
look, listen,
he was
I used to work.
a strong criminal.
I used to work.
Keeping the country safe.
Let me finish.
Okay? You went and invaded the country. And
Well,
you
it wasn't me
killed-
personally, but
I
it was
know.
our government. But listen, right? I've worked with Iraqis, right? And they told me when Saddam was there, it
Which
was brilliant.
Iraqis? Which Iraqis?
I don't know, I used to run a taxi
depends
company. Right, but they told me that being in Iraq under Saddam was obviously much better than it is now. Blair and Bush shouldn't have gone into Iraq. That obviously caused the problems because they weren't anticipating the
Yes,
civil war to
so-
break out
so
with the
that's what
Sunnis
brought-
and with the Shiites.
that's
But
what
you
brought
can't justify
ISIS.
terrorism because of our government's
I'm not
foreign
justifying.
policy.
No.
He's not justifying, but I'm saying he has a point
no
because
justification.
when America goes to
But
these
I'm
countries,
explaining.
people want revenge. They're like, oh, these Americans, they came to my country, they killed my people, so I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go and kill their people, which is against Islam, by the
Yeah.
way.
See, the problem I have, right? You see the problems and the atrocities that go on
Tony
in the
Blair
world.
should be put into
Mate, I
trial.
agree with you. I can't stand
Where is
there.
it though? Where is it though?
Oh, Blair.
George
I'm
Bush.
saying, where's the trial?
What, Tony Blair? He won't
Bush-
get a trial
that
because
is
he's too far
why-
protected.
that
He has
is-
to. He has security, so
Why
people
don't
see.
you?
Why your
Why don't
security
you make?
protect
Why don't
Tony
you
Blair?
protest against that?
Why your government
We don't see
protect
protest.
Tony
Yeah,
Blair?
but we just see you like broadcasting against
We need to
Just
see
like
all
you
of you
broadcast
lot.
against
That is
Muslim
why.
terrorists.
Tommy ahead of you, everybody protesting against him. No, but that's not
So
legal.
that's what brought terror into the area. That's what brought terror into my house. Not your house. Into my
Then
house.
if you look at the terrorist attacks that happened on the streets of England as well, it's still.
How many? Yes, every
Rigby.
single victim
Yeah.
is a victim.
Yeah.
But then count them. 10 on those shores, millions on the other side.
Terrorism is bad
So
either way.
put Tony
But at least,
Blair
you know
and
what?
George
At least you lot here
Put trial.
actually condemn it, and yet states like
We
that
do, we are
will
with
give you
you.
all a bad
He's a
name.
minority, bro. 0.1%.
But he gives you all a bad name, and then he's allowed. This is what should be wrong. I've got it on my phone.
It says here, it says in Surah 4 verse 93, he who deliberately kills a believer, his punishment is hell. That is by
But a believer, is that just to Muslims or is that to Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, and
Well,
Sikhs as
the
well.
Quran came down to everybody, right? So it will apply to everybody, right? Okay, the Quran did not only come down to the Muslims, right? And in Surah 5, verse 32, if anyone slays a human being for anything other than murder or spreading of corruption, the Quran says, if you kill one person, it's like killing the whole of mankind. And if you save one person,
It's as though you saved all of
So it
mankind.
doesn't mean that if you're getting one person who's going around killing people, all the Muslims can be
Well, what I'm
tagged,
saying
can be
is,
put in.
people like that give you all a bad name, and he shouldn't be. If you're gonna have freedom of speech, you have freedom of speech. But I wouldn't be surprised if you seen him on a news report committing something, and that's not. Yeah, and that's the problem. So he clearly supports someone like Chowdhury. How do you get these people like that off our streets? That's the problem. And like you said, he said, "Oh, Chowdhury knows law, he knows this."
You know what is the biggest problem? The biggest problem is man. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, you find the people of different contexts.
Yeah.
You understand? They haven't read the whole scripture. Have you Christian?
Yeah.
Have you read the whole Bible?
No, I've not read the whole Bible. I don't claim to know anything about scripture. I believe in God. But my problem is I look around what's going on, and then we see the people that are causing the problem. And it's not us.
Well, that's the Quran completely condemns it. In the strongest possible way. You take one line, you keep the whole community.
Well, maybe they'll give you more airtime and more of a platform, and then you can stop. People like that should be nowhere near this part. I know, but he's dangerous.
But he's not Muslim.
Well, he's a convert.
We don't talk about him.
Oh, you don't?
When he goes and says, I don't condemn ISIS,
Yeah.
he's not fucking Muslim.
You
Everyone condemn ISIS. I'm from Iraq. You should fucking condemn them because they're not Muslim. ISIS are not Muslim. They're barbaric. They kill people.
About this guy.
This guy, see that lady.
Our friends, and you know what? Outside we would
He condemns ISIS. He
yes? So we have to create in the request, in the request of the Western world to avoid propagation of the communism in the Arab world. Who is the sponsor? Who is the sponsor? No, the sponsor of the request, in the request of the Western world. The Western leaders. The sponsorship of the Arabs, Qatari and Saudi, but at least the sponsor, because it's in the request. So you have to blame ISIS, you have to blame as well the Western leaders. Your leaders.
We blame, listen, our leaders aren't for the people, and that's the problem. We don't support any of them.
You know, the Muslims have condemned, they have condemned ISIS, but they are not listening. That's the problem. Like you don't know about it.
No, then the opponent, you do what you want. Someone interpret you. Come on, brother. لا انا مكلم زوجي بالناس اللي خلف الحل هنا.
You have no deal, you have no religion. لكم دينكم ولي
اقسم
دين.
بالله العظيم احلف ما تيجي تدخل هنا بعمري هعمل لك مشكله كبيره هنا. Fuck off then. Fuck off. Fuck off. fuck off. Fuck off. لا انت ما من حقك. Brother, no. Come on, brother. Give me one. Come on, brother. He got right.
Okay, let's you want to debate?
No. Don't go that. Come on. Grown up. Come on.
What was he reading?
He reading what he wants. What
I asked him what he's reading.
He reading his Quran.
No, he
his
wasn't,
religion.
He wasn't reading the Quran.
No, he was reading his
He
Quran.
was reading something else.
No, he was reading his Quran, brother. Come on.
To you. I'm asking
Grown up.
him what
No. He was reading Quran, and you know he was reading his Quran, and he got right.
as you read your Jesus there. What's wrong with it? I'm not care. I'm the government. I'm the big man. No worry, brother. No worry. This is right time. This is right. Because he do what he want there. He should not interfere for others. Yeah.
I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the craftiness of shaitan. In the name of Allah, most gracious and most merciful. May the peace and the prayers be upon the prophets of Allah and the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I bear witness and testify that there's no deity worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He's one in His tawheed and that He has no partner. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ibn Abdullah again is His slave and His messenger. Amma bad. All people of Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. I don't need you. I need Jesus. I need Jesus. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. No man can get us right with God. Yet the God who was the Son of God, equal with God, died for our sins, rose again, and offers us peace with God. Without that, all you're going to do is point to Muhammad. Start talking about your own sickness. You've got a lot. You've got a lot of pride.
You've got sickness.
Yes, we all do. Right? So finally you're going to admit your own. Yes. Oh, there you go. You're starting talking about we all instead of someone else.
I mean, the one with the towel on his head, yeah, he's making it so bad for everyone, for your community. It's like, we had a debate with a Muslim cleric, and we went into every single debate with him. This was live on camera. It's on.
Right, your ideology too. Your ideology is the sickness too.
No, it wasn't Tommy. I think Muslim Vibe on TV.
Yes. What's your answer? Just a minute. I'm talking to the man with the camera who will get to you. What is your answer for this country?
This country. Deport all the extremists, get rid of all the terrorist supporters, get rid of the paedophiles, get rid of the murderers.
We'll have to get rid of you too.
What are you calling a murderer?
I'm calling you someone that is also guilty of things that are wrong. So you're going to point to everybody else.
So what am I guilty of?
You're the kind of guy that's in the car and said, he's driving his car and he said, man, I would love every car in this country if they were behind me, not ahead of me. That's the kind of person this sickness is.
Is that gin in there or vodka?
You know what? If this was gin, you'd be fighting to get it.
Oh,
but
really?
no, you know it's good British wa'a in me bottle. Now, sir, young man, what are you, 21?
29.
Well, stop acting so young. Your mind is not mature enough to understand you are your own worst enemy.
Right.
You point to everyone else.
No, I talk about other issues that are going on.
I don't think so. When did you talk about yourself and the badness of yourself?
I'm not a bad person.
There you go. You see? Well, this is the kind of guy that points at everybody else but doesn't know 4 fingers or 3 and a thumb and pointing back at him. That's called a hypocrite. Hello, hypocrite. Are you going to put that on your blog?
Yeah, you're live now. You've got about 700 people.
You know what? Without Jesus Christ, what's your name?
James.
James, without Jesus, you will constantly reject James 1:23. Look it up when you get home, James. James 1:23. James 1:23.
Go on then.
I'm going to let James just kind of chew on that one. Kind of figure out who he really is not. He knows what he thinks he is, but if James just knew what he wasn't, he would be a happy man because he'd realize he's one of the sickest people that he knows. But we only can be healed of our sickness when we know We are sinners. That's the beginning of it.
Listen.
That's a choice. We choose what we want to hear and what we want to reject, just like what I'm doing with James right now. I'm choosing. James needs to understand he is like a man that's looking in a mirror and he sees his own sin and he walks away and he forgets what he's really like.
What are my sins then? Come on, tell me.
Read God's word, James. James 1:23.
Well, read it.
And then you will know that God is the real life and light. Not you, not me. We're not fighting one another. We're fighting our own sin within. We need God's love to be able to give it to others. But you can't point at everybody else and say, you change and then I'll be better. We've got to say, I will change and be more like God, and then my love will affect others. I think you're understanding more. Go ahead.
No, the problem is, right, there's terrorist supporters down there and you're go confront them. Go tell them how bad they are.
They're not interested, James. It's like shoving a piece of seed on that concrete with your fingers. Do you think you can get it through that tarmac? It just pops right out. There's no value of it. They have an ideology, but so do you. Go ahead.
Our solution is lawful repatriation, right, and reformation of laws and so forth, right?
That's social, right?
Right, but it's to, sorry, but it's basically to make things more lawful.
I understand that, but you're working from the outside in instead of the inside out.
Yes, I understand, but it's a solution. What is your solution to the current epidemic?
I just told you.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying to you, what's your name?
Yeah.
Jan?
Cool, fam. Respect, brother.
Jan, what I'm saying to you.
Yeah, big up his army. Hey, log on to his army channel, fam. He was recording for man. I see how he's back now, still. So he's saying a beef. What happened in the end with that thing?
Those of you who do not know,
Ah, shit, it's took to Uncle Jamal. Let me get this shit.
Jesus Christ came to bear the penalty of sin in his own body on the tree, on the cross. He came to die in the place of sinners. Ever since the foundation of the world, God required sacrifice. But the sacrifices of animals can never take away sin. The sacrifices of animals can never take away the sins of a human being. That's why it was necessary for Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the eternal, to become flesh, to become one of us, and in that humanity to pay the penalty to the justice of God, which was death. And Jesus Christ suffered death on the cross to atone for our sin. He suffered the just for the unjust to bring us back to God again. The sacrifice of God.
I might look it off for a minute still. Can't see nothing really popping off.
You can change all the outlets you want. I know they have more problems with inward.
So the Bible says, what does the Bible say? In one part of the New Testament, it says, I do not permit that a woman to learn in silence and for submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent. For Adam was foremost the son, and Eve and Adam.
All views and opinions welcome, Steve. All views and opinions welcome, yeah. As long as there ain't really no personal info. Too personal. What's the time now? I swear time was supposed to be rolling down. 7 minutes, yeah? Man like man, sir. Oh, go on. Same boy, right? Hey. Good, yeah? Let me get Shakedown Juma, fam. Let me take in some of this. Say, fam, let me get in.
Put aside and burn. He said
Uncle Dan Juma, you don't mind if I film?
That's all right. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
I respect.
So, the former president, Sadiq al-Mahdi, said to me directly, I'm sitting with him in his house in Mulazmin in Oman in Sudan, just like I'm speaking with you now. And he said to me, son, this man is no relation of ours. We allow it because at least he is getting the Muslim community, the black community together. If one fewer woman is a prostitute on the streets of Brooklyn, Bushwick Avenue.
Big up good fellas. Respect for the 20.
One less person, thank you so much. If one less person is a drug addict and it's because of Imam Isa, then alhamdulillah. Yeah, but he said for the record, so I came back to London and I said, look, this does not sit comfortably with me, that not what Sadiq says, but what Imam Isa says. So I know the movement from that. So, but that wasn't the main point I was going to make. I said to Sadiq al-Mahdi, why is it our people, in looking for their African selves, they look towards Ethiopia, Rastafari, they look towards ancient Egypt, chematology, or they look towards Sudan as I am now. He said, because you people are mixed Africans through the history of slavery, and you have been so indoctrinated in hating the blacker side of your ancestry. You let me land, brother. It's video. Let me land. It becomes an argument too soon. Let me build up my case and then you can jump in. You know what I'm saying? Let me build it up. What he's saying is, because I know where you're coming, Horn of Africa. I get to the Horn of Africa. I get there. I get there. Right? What the brother was saying is this. Because we have been so made to feel, you know, yes, we used to have the situation in the Caribbean, but not just the mulatto, the half black, half white. You had the octoroon, the quadroon first, which is 3 parts white, 1 part black. Then you had the octoroon. You do that one in 8s. Then you had the Mustafino. Then you had the white person. So you had gradations where people were favored and had preferred and given advancement the more white blood they had. It wasn't just like house slave and field slave. It was on the basis of, all right, we have a mulatto. His father is a white plantation owner or an overseer. His mother is a slave. But then you have the child, that mulatto child, who is, they consider the child more houseworthy. They put that child in the house, she gets raped again from a white man. That child is called an quadroon. And again, the product of that child with a white person is an octoroon. So we have a situation in the West, from Canada to Brazil, you're not blacks in Argentina, but we'll talk about that later, where black people have always felt you had to upgrade the brown paper bag mentality. You had to upgrade. So with a lot of our conscious movements, we still couldn't get completely in our mind, we couldn't conceive of a God who looked like Marcus Garvey. He had to look like Haile Selassie. He had to look like Fard Muhammad. He had to be lighter skinned. You know, he had to be the lightest skinned black person in America. Those people, because of the 1-drop rule, would be considered black. However, in the Arab world, because the 1-drop rule works the other way along the patrilineal line, if your father is the Arab, it doesn't matter what your mother is, you're an Arab. So that's why a lot of Arabs get confused when they see Colin Powell saying he's black. But I look at the man and say, but you look like an Egyptian. You look like an Arab. As far as he's concerned, he's black because of the wonderful culture in which he was brought up. So Sadiq al-Mahdi was trying to say to me, a lot of black movements, early black movements, they gravitated towards Northeast Africa because the features of the people coincided with theirs. They were more comfortable with those features. Ancient Egypt, of course, is a special case, and I'll develop that before I let you come in, which is that ancient Egypt also had writing. The development of writing is like the development of the wheel. You have to conceive of the quantum leap in communication with writing is like the information age today. So can you imagine how much more Islamized India might have been if the Hindus did not have their scriptures written down in Sanskrit? One of the reasons why India managed to resist the encroachment of Islam was largely because you had the, I think you call it Upanishads, Vedas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, the books in Sanskrit. They had a language, so once you've written down your scripture, you can codify it, you can discuss it, you can debate it, you can upgrade it. And once you can subject your culture to debate, when an incoming belief approaches, and you have to have that dialogue. You have ways, you have arguments already preset. Exactly. With ancient Egypt, what people like about ancient Egypt, as I often say, is the concept of Romantica Gloriana, as opposed to Romantica Primitiva. Romantica Primitiva would be what would typify the negritude movement of Aimé Césaire, Frantz Fanon, Léopold Sédar Senghor, the first president of Senegal, which was that, how they would put it simply is, l'émotion est nègre et la raison est laine. L'émotion est nègre et la raison est laine. Emotion is black, but reason is European, is Greek. What they were saying is, we have an internal set of cultural norms the white man will never understand. It's an understanding as overstanding. It's not something you can just learn from books. And they were content to say, we who built neither cathedral nor spire, and that sort of thing. Now, that was the first president of Senegal who was one of the proponents of negritude. However, his political rival and far more intellectual contemporary, Professor Sheikh Anta Diop, came and said, excuse me, you are only repeating the history the white man has taught you. We were not just the Batwa, what people call the Pygmies, or the Kong, or the Khoisan, of the Kalahari. We were not just those. We in fact, yes, did build temples. We did build pyramids. We did invent writing. So we are both. We are both Romantica Primitiva, like you are praising President Senghor, but we are also more than that. We are also Romantica Gloriana. In fact, it is we are the foundations of ancient Crete, and ancient Crete is the foundation of ancient Greece. So we are indirectly or directly the foundation through ancient Egypt, Kemet, of European civilization. So our people tend to choose one or the other. Not a lot of people say I'm proud to be a pygmy. You may notice that. That's also because we come from a heightist society. How many people here say, how many women, there are no women here today, how many women say here, I'm so proud my boyfriend is 5 foot tall. Not a lot of women. We live in a heightist society. All right, so not a lot of people praise pygmies. Yet, if you look at some documentaries of how they build bridges that span rivers in the Congo, the sheer ingenuity is staggering. Now, if you look at any documentary of how the Kong or the Khoisan of the Kalahari make tiny little dart-like arrows, so ingeniously crafted, they can bring down an animal as big as an eland. That's the biggest antelope on earth, right? They managed to do this by your clever use of poisons and how the instrument is crafted. When you consider this, it has its own workings, its own logic. Now, most of our people have been programmed, in a sense, understandably so, to prefer pyramids and temples and writing, because it's closer to what we know. We're in a cash economy here. We all dress like this, and this is similar to what was happening in ancient Egypt, settled urban society. And for that reason, I understand, but what I will not have any patience with is the assumption that ancient Egypt is the be-all, end-all, and the final word when it comes to civilization in Africa. As a matter of fact, I'll go further and say, I have a strong suspicion that when more is done to unearth the sands of the Sahara, much will be discovered. They're seeing it already through satellites, of cities and the places under which is now covered in sand that have laid the foundations for Egyptian or Kemetian civilization. It's just that when the desert began to spread and when desertification set in between 7,000 to 2000 BC, large numbers of those people abandoned what they had there, moved towards the rivers. You would go towards the Nile or the Niger. And for that reason, you find a lot of the Nilotic people resemble a lot of the people from Senegal. So you have people in Senegal like the Serer. You have people in Senegal like the Wolof. You have people in Senegal who look like the Dinka, the Nuer, Fulani, right? Who look like the Dinka. Well, the Fulani are a bit red because the Fulani represent the mixture. Now, what's happening in history today is a kind of a refraction on this new knowledge that you find all over YouTube. Much of it is not peer-reviewed or accredited. So you find a lot of people repeating stuff that is what I call circular reporting. Somebody started a rumor and it just goes around and gains traction because it sounds good. Now, it may be some people came out of ancient Egypt that are today living in West Africa, but we shouldn't overstate that case. There's a problem with exaggeration where people are saying, you're almost left with the impression West Africa was empty, like the forest, which has all that food and animal life to support human existence, was completely empty until people left ancient Egypt and settled in Ghana, which is today Ghana, and Burkina Faso, and Nigeria, and so on.
The focus seems like it's on Egypt for some reason.
I contend that some people came, and they may, if they came with writing and rudiments of superior civilization, notice my hands, I see why many of the people living there who intermarried with them would like to exaggerate their claim to being from outside. I see why that would happen. But when we today in this modern world do that, to me it's an insult to Mother Africa. Let me repeat that again. I think it's an insult to Mother Africa when we have 5% Arab blood, 5% European blood, and we're claiming that we're Europeans or Arabs. This is my contention with this Hebrew claim too. I do not doubt that some people who, because at the time of Abdul Karim al-Maghili, he oversaw a massacre of Jews in a town, I think it's either in Morocco, Toat. It's Morocco or Algeria, one of those places. And many of them fled into the desert. Many of them fled into, some of them ended up in Timbuktu. So if you had some Jews from North Africa who settled in Timbuktu, and of course they continued their job as traders, it is not stretching the imagination that they'll get married to women there. And it's not stretching the imagination to conclude that as the generations go by, the third generation, people calling themselves Jews will be black. Because along the patrilineal line, there was a Jew who escaped the massacre of the Jews of Toat by Abdul Karim al-Maghili. Muhammad Abdul Karim al-Maghili. I forget, 1400, I don't know when it was. You can Google that. So, what I'm trying to say simply is this, brother, that we cannot make the minority the majority. We can't take a handful of Jews in Timbuktu and write a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu and act like if that book has any scholastic validity. It's a lot of supposition with a lot of gaps in between, none of which is substantiated, attempting to make a case for the presence of Jews in Timbuktu, which could be more easily made by saying these are descendants of survivors of a massacre in North Africa who are children of traders. That's all there is to that case, and you close that case. But when you extrapolate that Hebrews, black people are Hebrews, and all black people are Hebrews, and all Hebrews are black people, you're oversimplifying a case. But what I find dangerous about it is you take the African continent, which is rich. Like, what did one Congolese writer say? God lost his wallet in the Congo. That's a standing joke. But listen what I'm saying. God dropped his wallet in the Congo. That's a standing joke. That is the kind of wealth you find in just one part of the African continent. So am I now going to say I'm a Hebrew and abandon the African continent and go and live in a dust-filled piece of ground called Israel, where the Sea of Galilee is poisoned, what's the other river? Jericho River, whatever river called, Jordan River is poisoned. And that's why they're meddling in Igbo land and telling the Igbos that they're Hebrews. Why? Igbo land is the richest part of Nigeria. It has oil, it has all that water, it has fertile agricultural land, and they're whipping up these damn fools. Of course they want the foothold there. They're looking at China, they're looking at India, they're looking at the Lebanese, they want their peace too. Now, I understand that. What I will not understand is my people buying into that stupid narrative. My people are becoming what you call collaborators, man.
The people need to just research more, isn't it?
Huh?
Learn more about themselves, research more, find more about themselves.
Well, look, there's something willful about it. The Igbos have always been considered to be the Jews of West Africa due to their ingenuity. They say you take a gun and show it to an Igbo, he look again, he make a gun for you. An Igbo will make a gun. They're enterprising, they're business people. I suspect it's because the Igbo started with fewer prejudices than most of the peoples of Nigeria who were colonized by the British. The northern Nigerians, the Hausa, upon whom the concept of indirect rule was rolled out by Lord Lugard, so-called Lord Lugard. They had a system of emirates and caliphates in northern Nigeria. So they were resistant to European ideas. They suspected everything that was European. The Igbos started from a different playing field. So the Igbos learned, look, the best thing we can do is soak up as much of this white man's culture as possible, with the result that the Igbo embraced Western education far more readily than, say, the Northern, some of the Yoruba and some of the Hausa. So with that, they became the enterprising members of the population. Now, where they get from the word Igbo to Hebrew, that linguistic stretch, I don't understand how they came about that. Because a lot of things in different languages sound the same. But if essences and appearances were the same, there'd be no need for science. Hear what I say again, let me repeat that for you. If essences and appearances were the same, there would be no need for science. And we need to get a little more scholastic and a little more academic and a little more intellectual. I don't mind us being emotional, we got that. But what I need us to do is to stop and say, all right, why? The Romans used to do it. They said when a Roman found a body, you heard me say this before, when the Romans found a corpse, they used to ask the question, cui bono? Whom does this murder benefit? Cui bono? Whom does, the first question a detective has to ask, what's in this for who? Who gains from this? And what I need our people to understand is, ask those questions. Why are damn fool people saying they're Hebrews? What black people trying to say they're Hebrews? It's just one more damn thing to worry about. I mean, we got enough, I'm Muslim, he's Christian, we got enough religions as it is. You want another one to fight over? It's like, well, we don't have enough squabbles as it is. So my view of this Hebrew thing, especially the American ones, I forget what they call them, who hate Africa, that should ring alarm bells in anybody's head who is black. Immediately, anybody who cares about, you don't have to be black, man, just care about the African continent, because that's your mother, right? If anybody seriously cares about Africa, ask yourself, why you got a bunch of Hebrews saying, we are either the original Aborigines of America, maybe they don't make, somebody else making that claim, if not them. Either there's that claim, or there's the other claim where I don't know how they got to America, but they came as slaves, but they're not African. So I don't even want to go to DNA for that, because that's too basic.
I think a lot of them say that they came over from Israel and then they was living there. That's the
Yeah, they're from Babylon to Timbuktu myth. That same nonsense. Well, I think I exploded that. We talked about that just now. The Babylon to Timbuktu rubbish. That book is a plagiarization and a reproduction as fact from the speculations of J. Williams, who wrote a book called Hebrewisms of West Africa in the 1920s, from the Nile to the Niger with the Jews.
I think Uncle Taz on his way down right now.
The guy said, the man who wrote the book said, this is speculative. The man who stole the research and ran with it said this is fact. And that's the kind of lazy scholarship, or perhaps dangerous scholarship, that I don't want any part of. And this is what I'm trying to explain why we like ancient Egypt so much, or why we like pale-skinned Africa so much, why we obsessed with certain parts of Africa, why Selassie why the god of Rastas to look like Selassie, why the Nation of Islam god, Fard Muhammad, got to look like that, why we all got to be the lightest skinned black people ever. We're always going for the lightest skinned black people, and that goes back to me, in my opinion, transatlantic slavery and the old mulatto, quadroon, octoroon system of the lighter you are, the more preferment and advancement in the system of slavery you were given, and that lives on with us today. And that's my point. You wanted to ask me a question.
You heard everything. You heard everything.
Yeah, Uncle Ty, I hope you got that message. Questions to ask yourself.
Speak on, bro.
Questions to ask yourself. With this Hebrew Israelite stuff that you're talking about, you know what I'm saying? You want to be judging people. I told man from the beginning, it's a very selfish concept. Do you know what I'm saying? And I don't understand, because your God seems to be selfish anyway. You know what I'm saying? He seems to be emotional. He seems to not want you to worship other gods other than him. So there are other gods out there. Let's stop playing. You know what I'm saying? And the genealogy to say that you are a Hebrew Israelite, especially the Israelite bit, descendants of Jacob. Really? In 2018, this is what you're going to be telling people. We can understand that you want to identify, as Uncle said, with yourself or the continent. Do you know what I'm saying? But pick an ideal that is more realistic and not based in the book of the oppressor. Plain and simple. Bye.
All right then.
What is important for us to try to understand is that there is more than one way you can be African. And we should not do what the slave masters did to us. As a Muslim, I have no truck with trying to proselytize and convert and force people to believe things they're not ready for or they don't want to hear. But nobody forced me where I am today. And I wouldn't do that to anybody else. And I would hope that the Christians in this audience, you can be African, you can be Christians. The Ethiopians, they've been Christians from the 4th century under King Ezana. I'm not saying it was always rosy for the other people who lived in Ethiopia. There were problems too, but like it is what it is. These people have been, so to me, when I talk about Christianity, I'm not just speaking about what the white man brought to Africa. There have been indigenous forms of Christianity. There's Nubia. You with me?
I'm with you.
There's been Nubian Christianity, right? There's Coptic Christianity. There's Ethiopian Christianity. And if these people have indigenized their Christianity, and it's a part of their culture, and people have no problem with peaceful coexistence, I too have no problem with that. What we're having with a lot of neo-African beliefs in the modern world today is they're behaving like the same Christianity they came from, and they're saying that they're rejecting, i.e., I'm a Kemetist. I believe in Kemet. I believe in Ma'at. Ma'at is the only way. If you believe in the Ifa or Risha system of the Yoruba, you are wrong. Now, where do you get that from? You know where you got that from? Your days of being a Christian. That's where that comes from. Where I have a particular I practice Dogon spirituality. You practice Ifa or Risha. What makes yours better than mine? That's happening a lot, and in our conscious community, people are cannibalizing each other. You have people proselytizing like when they were Muslim and Christians. in that same sort of way. Now you got to ask yourself, are we facing the psychosis of the Americo-Liberian once again? You know the history of the Americo-Liberians.
Yeah.
They were freed, they were returned to Monrovia to make a place for repatriated Africans, but they took all the prejudices of the white man and imposed it upon the ethnic or the people who are living in the land before them. I don't want to say I've used careful language because they came from the land too, but they returned after whatever 200 years of slavery. They came back there, but the Barclays and all these families began to behave the same way. They brought their American slave prejudices to bear on how they administered those people of the interior, the Gola and the different ethnic groups in Liberia. And I'm having a problem with the way a lot of our indigenous beliefs are reflected upon each other in the conscious community. There's a lot of cannibalizing, a lot of infighting, and to me, now I understand where some of it could come from. If you have, for example, because I'm trying to argue both parts here. I don't want to just be on one side. Let me try to look at both sides here. If you have a situation where, for centuries, Islam and Christianity has had a well-crafted argument battering you with a book, you're going to respond the same way. And I get that. But then you have these communities attempting to turn guns on each other. Oh, I am practicing voodoo of down the Benin. I'm practicing voodoo. It is superior to Ifa. And that sort of thing.
Uncle, let me ask you a question, Uncle, yeah? Because I hear what you're saying, but from my perspective, I see far more still today, Abrahamic suppression of those traditions. Like I've got an African ritualist here, and I've been to all kind of different ceremonies with all kind of different people, all kind of different expressions of African spirituality, and there's never been a problem, yeah, in Africa, among African spiritual circles. I'm not saying that there's not debate sometimes, but I see far more harmony, yeah, between voodoo and Ifa, yeah. And you know what I'm saying, but and various other different systems than I see between Christianity and Islam, especially between Christianity, Islam, and African spirituality. Yeah, so both Christianity and Islam may have mutual respect for each other. Judaism may have mutual respect for each other, but when it comes to African spirituality, when it comes to Ifa, when it comes to voodoo, when it comes to Kemetic spirituality or any other spiritual system on the continent, it's very aggressive. Yeah, and I'm seeing far more division between African spiritual systems and Abrahamic systems, if that makes sense, than I have seen between African spiritual systems. I just want to
no doubt. Truth, look, facts are facts. I'm speaking to you as a practicing Muslim, yes, and that is a fact.
I know you're
that is a fact.
Time, from West Africa days. So
yeah, your father's Mandaka.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that. I saw I thought I recognized the face.
Yes.
You see, the truth is this: we have to realize, Africa is sufficiently vast and varied, not just ethnically, racially, culturally, to admit a plurality of cosmologies and beliefs. What we have to find a way to do is say, unity that we want, will the unity of Africa be predicated on the detraction of the subtraction of some people's beliefs? Mao had to do that in the, what revolution?
China.
Mao Zedong.
Yeah, China.
Yeah. What was the name of the green?
Industrial.
The Cultural Revolution. He had to say things like, if you have to make an omelette, you're going to be forced to crack some eggs. Now, I want all of us to be winners. I don't want there to be losers in Africa. So when we talk about the Kong of the Kalahari, I want us to celebrate their beliefs as much as we celebrate the beliefs of the Orisha people. We have to. We can't just say, all right, the Yoruba belief is more codified, it's more coherent, it's more developed. Forget about the Khoisan. Forget about them.
No, I agree.
And this is one of the problems I'm trying to anticipate what we need to head off. We need to put that in our minds. That there is, all right, of course, in belief systems, there will be some beliefs that are more intrinsically attuned to the 21st century than others. That's a fact. But it's how we deal with other people who aren't there that will be the making of the Africa that we're looking for. I think, personally, the word unity, we belong to a group called the African Co-op, and we have a t-shirt. I should have brought my t-shirt today. The t-shirt has a motto: one language is West African language, and one language is East Africa. Kankiling, Umoja. For the Swahili speakers, you already know Umoja. Yes.
Umoja?
Umoja. Umoja.
Oh, Umoja.
Umoja, not Moja. All right, unity.
What's Umoja?
Yeah.
Umoja means what? Umoja.
You are not listening, brother. Don't talk to me. Talk to me. You're not listening. All right, Umoja. Kankiling is Mandinka. Why I use Mandinka? The first book that really got us hyped into Africanity in the West was Roots. We may take issue with Alex Haley a bit. He embroidered a couple facts here and there, true.
Nothing wrong with that.
Forgivable. But Mandinka was the language that really got us understanding our African selves through the book Roots, written in the mid-70s. Kankiling is a Mandinka word meaning unity. Moja is an East African word, Swahili, meaning unity. So that's the motto. The problem is, I am beginning to wonder, and people here can contribute to this, will this unity be predicated on a denial of the beliefs of some parts of Africa, of the culture of some parts of Africa?
But are you saying that you're seeing that tendency now?
I'm trying to head it off. I think it's going to happen.
Anticipating it? Okay.
Yes, because in order...
I'm not seeing it. That's what I'm asking the question. Where?
I'm seeing it. I mean, it's what we kind of discussed the other day. Like when diasporans...
Yeah. But that's the first
have an idea. No,
that's
have
the
an
way
idea
He's saying on the continent.
Of their own continent. They have an idea and a theology of their own continent. Yeah. But negating again, as I said, remember, because everybody who was around was from the continent.
But we
disagree. Some things seem strange when they're explaining something. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
No, but you're talking about on the continent itself.
Those who
and the diaspora.
Right. And but I'm saying, because to me, I disagree with your perception. Yeah. In the sense that I don't, generally speaking, from one traditional African spiritual system to another, I don't necessarily see a negation. Yes, I don't generally see that. Now, if you're saying that you're anticipating something, I can appreciate that. Because of the tendencies that we've learned, especially coming through this period of repression, we may carry certain things and develop certain tendencies among ourselves, and I think it's wisdom, to really prepare for that possibility. What I'm saying, and that's why I would agree with that. I'm just saying that I was wondering if you're speaking to something that you're seeing, because I want to know more about what you're seeing. I mean, we had a disagreement the other day in relation to what the brother just saying, because I'm saying that coming from a diaspora perspective, like, we have to appreciate, when we say in the diaspora, we have expressions that are dominant in the diaspora, that come from the tradition that we carried into the Caribbean, into the Americas. So, for example, I would say that Ifa tradition is the biggest, as far as the diaspora. You'll find it in more places in the Americas than, say, Akan tradition, which is my personal lineage. But I don't see in diaspora, for example, people fighting over Lukumi or Santeria. This I'm saying, or Kumina and Obia. You know what I mean? I don't.
Point of order, in Cuba,
yes,
there was a problem between Santeria and Palo.
Right.
The Palo tradition apparently may have come from the Poro Secret Society of Sierra Leone, but it may have some accretion to Efiki Bibio in Rivers area in Nigeria. Now, because their traditions were secret society, the very nature of the Poro is secret. For other practitioners, they're doing things that they're not allowing us to witness, and therefore it must be sorcery, it must be obia, and that was a problem. So there is but that's minor. But I like to bring up, I like to invoke these things because you're a thinking young man. We gotta give each other things to think about. Sometimes these things do happen. What I'm saying is, I'm actually looking at the African continent in a different way. I feel that Africa, the word Africa, is too small a tent at times under which to shoehorn all of our different ethnicities with their different worldviews and cosmologies. And we have to think in terms of Pan-African unity in a different way. I need you, we all need help in forming something that does not rob some ethnicities. A good example would be somebody who was speaking Swahili to me. You're Tanzania. It was fairly okay. You could get a large number of people to agree to speak Kiswahili in Tanzania, even though they speak Chaga, they speak Sukuma, they speak Hehe, they have their local languages. They could agree in a way that other African countries have agreed on English. They have agreed on Kiswahili. But in a place like Nigeria, it's a bit more difficult. 200 languages at least, and 3 or 4, 5 dominant ones, not just 3, 5 dominant ones. So what we need now is, how do we imagine a very good unfolding case is South Sudan. And South Sudan should represent to us a golden opportunity because it's a new African country. It's a new country. It's free of a lot of the problems that other African countries had of too much Christianity or Islam. So I often speak with their leaders. I speak with their analysts and I say, look, you have a golden opportunity to develop your Dinka or your Bari, different ethnic groups, cosmologies, and see how you go with them. And he's saying we have the same problem already. The Nuer or the Nat and the Geng, the Dinka, are the two major dominant ethnic groups are at each other's throats already. They are already having problems, and it would be difficult to speak in terms of really linguistic unity because you have over 25. In fact, I think he counted for me about 40 languages in the South Sudan country. Forget not Sudan, just the new country, South, 40 languages. About 5 dominant ones.
Have you heard of a brother called Jean-Claude Mboli and Kwesi Pra? Yeah.
The Ghana man.
Yeah, he lives in South Africa now.
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
Because they're doing a lot of groundbreaking work in terms of African languages, yeah? And looking at the common origins, yeah, of the language systems, yeah? So Mboli's from Congo. Kwesi Pra's from Ghana, he lives in South Africa.
Yeah,
and they're running like literacy projects and them kind of things there. But they're looking at, one of the things that they're doing, which I found mind-blowing, is looking at the commonalities of the languages and creating written forms of the languages that can be mutually understood, yeah, across the different groups. Because if you look at, when you look at one country that has 25 languages, oftentimes the different languages have relatability, yeah, or levels of what they call mutual intelligibility among them. So they might be 75% mutually intelligible because they have a common origin. Yeah? And so I'm saying that I see one of the solutions to what you're talking about, us getting to know ourselves and our culture even deeper, because then we might be able to intuitively see, just through something like language, how we're actually more linked. So that a person doesn't necessarily feel like they're losing a part of their language, they're just actually getting a deeper understanding of, you know what I'm saying, that language system.
I study linguistics.
Well, in Tanzania this was workable because they all speak Bantu languages in Tanzania.
So that's the point. There are no such things really as different languages. You know what I'm saying? They're all just different dialects of the same language. You know what I'm saying? The words have different meanings in different. You know what I'm saying? If I'm Khoisan and you're one neighbouring tribe, for example, you know what I'm saying? The words just might mean different things, but the tone is the same. You know what I'm saying? So this has been, and the only unifying where you can see the unification of the language is like in Egypt or Kemet or whatever you want to call it, where they had a system that everybody could universally understand because it's all based on two base languages that really just the one language. You know what I'm saying?
I want to disagree a little slightly if I may. I hope you don't mind. I take issue with this.
Go ahead.
The problem with language in Africa varies from region to region. If you take the languages of South Sudan, some of them are Nilotic languages, and some of them are not. Some of them are like Equatorial Nilo-Saharan language. Niger Congo, some are Bantu languages, and that it presents a difficulty because if you take, like you mentioned, Khoi, these are click languages. Now, the Zulu and the Xhosa may have borrowed the clicks, but clicks are not indigenous to Zulu or to Xhosa. They are not. They borrowed a few of them. The languages that have them most developed would be Khoi languages, and their languages are actually in a linguistic group on their own. And it is the same with if you take Ethiopia, for example. A lot of the languages would be Cushitic languages.
Right, so would you say written language is progression or regression? Considering the origins of language.
Given the direction of the world today, I say it's progression. Given the direction of travel we're in, you cannot do without it.
And being who we are.
When I get the chance, please, to speak, I'm listening to that.
And being who we are as people, you know what I'm saying? And individuals and knowing our past capacity and capability, you're going to say that writing things down, because you have to remember, you understand, is progression. I think it's
given the direction of I'm telling you, given the direction of travel in the world today, if you look at how empires were developed in Africa, the reason you have the advantage in areas like Ghana, Mali, Songhai, Kanem Bornu, Aksum, Kemet. It was largely because of writing. They were able to disseminate and spread their beliefs through writing. They could impress people, trade, keeping accounts. If you're doing trans-Saharan trade across the Red Sea, Ethiopia with the Arabian Gulf. If you're doing trade, you're doing it by keeping accounts. So in order to keep accounts, you have writing systems. And this is where, that is one of the attractions Islam had in places like Jannah and Timbuktu. The fact that yes, so I believe the direction of travel in which the earth is going, writing is a positive thing.
Right, so did we originally use language?
Spoken word.
Language. Did we always use spoken word?
I'd say, yeah, humans always spoke first.
So the click
came first.
Is spoken. First. I mean, is it words or language?
I think your camera stopped recording.
Language.
So what's the first written click language?
I can't answer that.
Right.
What I can answer is that spoken language predates written language. Spoken language predates long centuries before humans knew how to hold a quill. They spoke. Yeah.
So is it progression or regression?
You're making a good point because with emoticons.
It's a good question.
No, I've given him an answer, but I want to also backtrack a little on my answer by saying we have got a system of computer speak nowadays where they use emoticons, which is almost going back to like hieroglyphs.
It's true.
It's almost going back. It's a weird thing where you're talking to some friend and you want to be brief.
Yeah. The whole thing is
and it's like so there is that. But I think with a crystal ball into the future, that may not supplant writing as we understand it today. I think the direction of travel is writing.
So which one is more sufficient? Is mouth to ear or
writing? Depends on the context.
Depends on the context. I'd say that, yeah, it depends on the context.
Context.
I say it depends on the context.
Context.
But for me, I think even more importantly, more fundamentally, it depends on the language. So because of the relationship between language and culture, so I'm saying that beyond writing or speaking, it's the language and the cultural expression. Because I'm saying that whereas we've got so much problems getting a unified language in different countries on the continent, but it seems to me that there's greater division in these colonial languages. That how come we can all speak colonial languages fine, but when it comes to choosing between one of our local languages, it's problems.
The amount of literature.
English. We all speak.
It's the amount of literature in the colonial language. You see, for example, take the Portuguese, Angola. It shocks
What is colonial to start with?
Brother, you're taking us backward. No, you're taking us back.
All I'm saying is all you are speaking of is falsehood because you know why none of this want to listen? Because you know why? You choose not to listen. If you want to stand upon the truth, first must learn to listen, my brothers, So whoever wants to stand upon the truth and not off the truth must listen.
I want to keep a flow on this.
Because the truth is one.
This is taking us
Walid
backwards.
Isaac's channel on YouTube because the oppressors of truth oppress the
wrong,
truth. So if you want to support the truth, support Walid Isaac's channel. Because you know what?
You see, once you start getting people enjoying this,
oppressors oppress somebody who tries to stand upon
Once
the
it starts getting like this, I don't really want to get involved anymore. Right, let me go. Right. What was the point you were? What was the point you were making?
No, I was saying that it's because we got colonial languages that we operate, and so we said that our own languages we can't unite among them because we speak so many languages. But we all speak the English, we all speak the French, the Portuguese, the Arabic. We all speak those languages, and they're the most widely spoken languages that are supposedly uniting us. We can't communicate among ourselves in our own languages.
It redounds to the same point I was making before about this, about writing. What has happened is, and I was saying I was shocked by the extent to which Angolans feel comfortable using Portuguese as an inter-ethnic form of communication, the way Tanzanians use Kiswahili. So where we would have looked at a place like DRC and they have Lingala as a form of inter-communication, if they don't use Kikongo, they will use Lingala. I'm surprised to see in Angola they're using Portuguese. And sometimes...
But that's colonization.
Yeah,
but you'd expect that where I come from.
Nigeria is not colonization, but we speak Portuguese.
No. I'm saying
the
lingua franca in Nigeria is English. That's colonization. Yeah. This I'm saying.
No, what I'm saying, I'm going further.
The lingua franca.
No.
What language is spoken in the legal system, in the parliament, and the education system? Right. That's the lingua franca.
No, let me agree a bit here. Portuguese is a stronger influence in Angola than English is in Nigeria.
I would say
it
more
is
explicit.
extremely
because-
strong.
No, I'm not saying that, you know, and I agree with you in the sense of the fact that you will meet people from Angola and they'll tell you that they're Portuguese. Yeah, you very rarely meet a Nigerian that's going to tell you that they're English. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's not different in the fundamental sense that the lingua franca of the nation is still a colonial language. Yeah, that's the similarity.
What I'm saying is, in terms of emotional relationship to the language, here's what a Nigerian has with English. He will speak English formally, like you said in their formal.
Yes.
On the streets, they speak Pidgin. But when they are home, if he's an Igbo, he speaks Igbo. The Yoruba man speaks Yoruba. So the Portuguese influence in Angola is deeper. It's deeper than that. And what I'm saying is, I understand it comes back to the same thing called writing, information. Once people started writing down information and disseminating it, we started to lose. And that's where we have to, I think, have to write our languages down.
This is the
we
problem.
have to.
I feel
we have
also,
to.
once it started to get to the European languages in Greek and Latin, that's where the problems start. Because this is where they start using ideas like codex and things like that. So once language becomes coded, you get what I'm saying? You can do all sorts of trickery and blah, blah, blah. Prior to that, that's not the way.
Let me give an example of what I mean. Why do so many, you've been to East Africa?
No, I've been to West.
No problem. If you go down the Swahili coast, anybody here from Tanzania, Kenya? If you go down the Swahili coast, a large number of people answer to the appellation Arab. We're Arabs. They look
I was going to ask you about that.
Now, here,
we discussed that as well.
Their first language is Kiswahili.
Yes.
They'll tell you they're Arab. The reason for that, I'm coming back to the point of writing. When Arabs came to the coast, they came in two major phases. They came in the phase from the early 8th century, 7th century, to 1505 when the Portuguese came and destroyed the Swahili city-state trade. Then they came with the Omanis in the 18th century, and that was for about 100 years. But in the first phase, when the Arabs came, they came as traders, they came as merchants, they came as settlers, they married and they indigenized, and they adopted. In fact, Swahili is formed a bit from Arabic. Up to 30% of its vocabulary.
But some people say as well that there's Arabic, there's Swahili in Arabic as well, but people don't talk about it.
Of course, Swahili is the second language of Oman. Swahili is in fact the second language in Oman, which is in the Arab world next to Yemen, right? So the point I'm trying to make it, no, it's a language too, because I'll tell you where, in Zanzibar, Kimbuja became the standardized form, which they teach in schools as far as Uganda. Even today, it is replacing French in Rwanda and Burundi because of what happened in the genocide. So Swahili, but let me just land on this point. The Arabs came with writing. So when an Arab, just like you have a Bible and you open your Bible and you put, when you get married, you use the Bible and they put the name of the children and who their father and mother was. That's in the Christian context. In the Islamic context, it's the same. You start writing down, I am the son, just like in African culture. I am the son of so-and-so. Who is the son of so-and-so? Who is the son of so-and-so? Now, if the Arab side is writing it down, it's being written down in Arabic by the Arab side. So as the children grow, and the grandchildren grow, and the great-grandchildren grow, as Muslims, but even if they're not Muslims, they're writing down concepts in the Arabic script. So the people who brought that script are Arabs. And that is why a large number, the African side, were not writing down their ancestry. So as time passed, what remains in the memory
is the Arabic script.
Is the Arabic script. We are Arabs. Now in Swahili culture, however, it's not that simple. Swahilis will still tell you, we have ancestry on the right and ancestry on the left. They actually take their ancestry. They are aware that there are two sides to their ancestry. So, but there is that point about writing. That's what I'm saying. I believe, no, we have to write these languages down.
You're saying, as far as the challenges of today, we have to use writing.
Yes. Look, Mandarin Chinese is being taught in parts of Africa. Mandarin is being taught. So we're going to sit down and write nothing down, and next thing our children writing in Chinese ideographs. We have to get with the program. Even if we get a computer level of some sort of new computer speak and leap over the whole writing system as conventionally known. Perhaps
but
we may have to explore that.
As long as you acknowledge, we've gone from this to this. You know what I mean? As long as you acknowledge.
What happened centuries ago in ancient Egypt?
I'm just saying.
Centuries, Sumerians. You know, but Egypt is in Africa. Hold on a second.
No, I know.
As a black
I'm saying-
people, we did that a
When we
long
was doing
time
this-
ago.
Okay, then.
I know what we lose. I got you for going.
I could phone you with my mind.
No.
When I could phone you with my mind, yeah, we were advanced. It's regression.
Say again?
A lot of people would argue that, you know, that Arabian Peninsula, Israel, Jerusalem, all that is part of Africa.
I don't get it. I don't get into fights about that. I know. I hear that. Look, when there are arguments, which I can see both sides, I don't.